just extended runs, basically. This guy at the controls, and he's going to throw a wide open Tez Johnson. Tez Johnson heading to the end zone. Touchdown, Oregon. 48 yards.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
They hand it to him. Touchdown! Georgia SEC champions! As every dog digs really deep.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
56-yarder, the win really not a factor. Snap and hold are good. That one is good! At the buzzer! Clemson wins the ACC.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Udo on 2nd and 5, first down and more. Udo might be gone. Race is on. Past the 40-yard line. Inside the 30. Inside the 10. And tripped up inside the 5.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
There's Mr. Contact Balance again. Look at Scattaboo go. Tripped up just inside the 20. What an unbelievable first half by Scattaboo.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go to close out the week on 365 Sports. College football with Army-Navy tomorrow. Of course, a huge game. There are some sub-level FBS playoff games, and of course the Heisman tomorrow night, and then next week the first round starting on Friday of the college football playoffs. We'll get into some of that, some of the bowl games too, but we appreciate your time. If you don't mind, click that like or subscribe button or both, and we'd appreciate you doing that. We appreciate your time every day. Craig Smoak to my right, Paul Catalina is to my left. Garrett Ross and Emery Winter are here, for God's sakes, to create problems for me. So I've had this head cold, and you guys told me I knew how to fix it, right? Mm-hmm. I was sneezing probably 35 to 40 times yesterday. So I did take what you suggested I take, and I slept like a baby. So I'm a little bit dangerous today with what I have in my system.
Well, I'm glad you took our advice, because when we first offered it to you, you said that
very grumpy.
You weren't going to take any medicine and just tough it out like one of those like Christian Scientist people who thinks if God wants you to heal, he'll do it, as if he didn't put doctors on this earth for a reason.
My problem with medicine is that sometimes medicine, you take it and then it makes you have to take something else or creates another problem. But I did take it. It was great. I slept well. I'm not quite over it. I'm being smart. It's great to be here today, and I don't have my tissue paper all ready for me. All right, Dabo Swinney. Wow. He's not a transfer portal guy, right? They were pretty good. They're in the college football playoff after the win against SMU as the number 12 seed. They open with Texas on the road, and they are hosting Purdue. Edge rusher Will Help on a visit sometime in the upcoming days. And is Dabo going to pick and choose? And not that he's going to go crazy here, but it looks like he's at least looking at the opportunity.
Well, look, if he did, what just Kirby Smart does most years, and takes 5 to 7 guys to bridge a gap for you, I don't think that would hurt them at all. That's really where their depth hits a wall. I have 2 theories on this. One is that after 3 years of this, he's seen enough portal attrition on his side where, guys leave Clemson. He doesn't replace them with portal guys. He replaces them with high school freshmen that, particularly maybe next year on the defensive line, if they don't get somebody like Will Helt in there, then they're going to have a problem where they've normally had a strength, which is on the defensive line. They've done great with it. And my second thing is, if I'm an assistant coach for Dabo, I might be going like, hey, when can we end this embargo here? Like, you made your point. It's not a cure-all, but we're all fighting with muskets and doing pretty well, but everybody else has tanks.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a notable headline because of the fact that he has so sparsely added from the portal 2 guys since 2018, both of them quarterbacks. That's it. That's his history of transfer portal additions, which seems almost like it's made up because just how could that possibly be? You've barely ever dipped into the portal in that way. Even though we joke about it, it almost feels like you joke about it, and we're joking about it because he doesn't go and get like 15 or 20 guys. He only gets like 4 or 5. And it's like, no, he gets like practically nobody, like legitimately nobody. And that's just so odd that he's been able to even carry it this far. Now, to his credit, how many teams are sitting at home during the playoff, and he's in the playoff, and how much dirt was thrown on his grave the last couple of years about how this isn't sustainable and it's not going to work and this and that, and they're in the playoffs. So I think that is notable that he's been able to still accomplish what he's accomplished despite that. But I think at some point, yeah, everything kind of has to give, and you kind of have to be realistic about what's best for your football program. And adding a guy like Will Helt is definitely better for your football program moving forward. And no, there's not a guy that you can just go pluck out of the high school ranks that's going to come in and do what he can do for you. So I think Dabo can still maintain his sort of status quo, not exactly as in bringing in nobody other than a couple quarterbacks, but you don't have to go get 10 guys. You don't have to get 15 or 20 like some programs do. You can go and get maybe a guy here and a guy there and sort of cherry pick, and I think that you still kind of maintain your stance for the most part because you're not going all portal heavy and creating your team basically out of it. But I do think it's a sign that, yeah, you also can't just not ever get anybody and expect to go back to the playoff on a regular basis. And he's a talented player, so why would you not want him? So, yeah, that's funny to see, and I'm sure extremely good to see for Clemson football fans out there who want to have a little bit of excitement when it comes to transfer season and know with a program like that they could have an immense amount of excitement and a lot of talent come their way through the transfer portal if he just opens his arms up a little bit more. So definitely a notable story and a change in the narrative around Dabo and the transfer portal. We'll see if they actually land Will Helt, but the pursuit is of note, and I think maybe he gets a little taste of it and he goes, oh, wait a second. Like, damn, this is kind of nice. Like, you mean we can just go get guys that are ready to play right away? Like, maybe it changes his entire life.
That are 2 or 3 years older than high school kids?
I rag on Dabo a lot, and most of it's just because of his personality and his whole general vibe.
I think it's because he helps put losses on your team's record occasionally.
And his personality and his general vibe. I mean, if he would put losses, if you like Spurrier and put losses, I would be like, I'm not gonna rag on him. Like, that guy's kind of cool. Dabo, just his vibe is, I don't like it. I don't like it.
Is he too peachy clean? Too just almost what?
All shucks.
He's pretentious.
What if he is?
What?
What if he's really that guy?
He's not. I mean, nobody is.
Oh, okay.
I mean, like, that's not a normal human. Like, the way he acts is not how normal humans act. Like, he's not, like, God's name, image, and likeness is not a thing that normal people say. People that understand how religion and things work. He's just a pandering jackass when he says stuff like that. So he's pandering to people who aren't going to help him. I mean, so those are the things that, like, he's not normal. He's not a normal dude. Like, it's a fake personality that he has. It's all things. So that's why I don't get down with Dabo. But the transfer portal thing, I just think, like, my whole thing is it's stupid not to use every weapon at your disposal when you don't have to use, like, I think he sees it as it has to be all or nothing, like a lot of these schools like Florida State, Colorado, a lot of the schools around him are doing. No, you're Dabo Swinney. You're a damn good football coach. You're schematically, like, he is a schematic genius. The dude knows how to call games. Now, he does get in his own way a lot because of that weird, awful personality he has, but he's really good at being a football coach in games most of the time. But when you don't have depth, and you don't have those things that other schools have, and you just say, like, oh, well, our freshmen are good, eventually you're going to run out because, you have attrition, but you don't replace. And you're banking on freshmen to come up and be good. Well, that's not always the case.
Baylor today picked up a 350-pound nose tackle. He'd been at A&M. He's from Atascocita High School, which is one of the highest-ranked schools in the state of Texas. Samu Tama Nu Pepe. He's 6'3", 350. I saw some film on him. I reached out to his head coach at Atascocita. Former A&M quarterback Craig Stump. Have not heard back from him yet, but they need, and I saw a lot of comparisons to Siaka Ika, who was Apu, who was at LSU, who was phenomenal. Not sure about what level of player this guy is, but they needed somebody big inside to help, and they got it. And he didn't have a lot of stats, didn't play quite a bit. A&M's defense, of course, was pretty good, and so they pick up a huge nose tackle.
Yeah, they do. That's the first pickup from the portal for Dave Aranda and company, and they definitely need some guys on the line next year to add some size and some depth and just some talent. And yeah, not a guy who really made a huge mark at Texas A&M, but obviously is going to be close to home still, so you're not bringing a guy from halfway across the country to come in here. Should be just a nice fit from that perspective. And out of high school had a lot of incredible offers. I mean, had your Oregons, your UTs, your TCUs, your Colorados, your A&Ms, obviously, amongst various others. Miami had all offered him coming out of the high school ranks. So, yeah, 6'3", 350. That's not the kind of size that is just walking around every campus in America. So a guy that definitely has some potential to help clog up the middle and create a little bit of a matchup nightmare maybe for some offensive lines next year for Aranda's defense. But definitely a quick move by them. They saw something they liked and went after him and locked him in, and I think that's great for Dave Aranda to get the ball rolling and to immediately address a need that's very clearly a need going into the next season.
All right, so there we are with that, and now, of course, Baylor's coaching staff seems to be pretty much intact, except that job at Sam Houston State is still open. Matthew Powledge among some of those. It does appear Rashad Samples may be, according to some reports, the number one target. Georgia Tech quarterback Haynes King, what a performance against Georgia in that game that went 8 overtimes. Has told the media he expects to be back another year at Georgia Tech. I'm sure they're thrilled with that. Said he can never say anything's 100%, but his plan is to return for what would be his redshirt senior season. Haynes King started out, of course, at A&M, went to Georgia Tech, and he's had a pretty nice career with the Yellow Jackets. It appears he's coming back for one more year.
Yeah, he's a really fun college quarterback, I'll tell you, and he's fought his way back. And I know A&M fans are now looking at it like, if you look at that Colin Klein offense that they're running now compared to Jimbo's offense, Haynes King, especially if he can actually throw, I think what was most impressive about him this year is they got 2 big wins or had big games in games where his shoulder was hurting so bad he couldn't throw, and he toughed it out. Like, that dude is old school. He could be the leather helmet guy. You know, he just like everything that, you know, people complain about modern day athletes of like, these guys are sissy. Well, he didn't fall in that category. He's a gamer. He's a leader. He's meant a lot to Georgia Tech and Brent Key. And I'm excited to see what they do next year. If he can stay healthy and actually throw the ball, that'd be wonderful.
Was there a real question that he wasn't coming back?
Yeah, there was. There was a thought that he might not.
Do what?
I don't know.
Like, it wasn't going to the NFL.
No, he wasn't. But he was asked about it, and it was apparently there was enough speculation about it that they brought it up.
Yeah,
I have not talked to his father because he's got a game still. He's in the semifinals in high school football.
Yeah, I just wondered why there was so much scuttlebutt, because I don't follow Georgia Tech super close, so I'm sure there's a conversation ongoing I'm just not aware of. But yeah, I didn't think there was really any question that he'd be back. He's not, like I said, going to go to the NFL right now. So that was off the table. So maybe there was a thought that because, well, they do have a young quarterback, okay, I could see where that would be maybe the reason why you'd think that he would go off. But the problem with that is, with one arm, he's better than that young quarterback. And he was the guy they were leaning on to try and beat Georgia at the end of the year with one arm hanging at his side. So, yeah, this isn't surprising to me, but I'm glad that if there was any question about it, that he's put that to rest and that Georgia Tech can start planning around having Haynes King back next year, and hopefully with 2 fully healthy arms where he can actually be effective throwing the football. But his grittiness and his toughness this year, I think, was amongst the most, impressive in America, because he fought through clearly what was very painful injuries, especially that shoulder, to just line up and run the football old school style and do what he can to help his team win football games, and he did that, and he helped them win games and have a pretty successful season and nearly knock off Georgia in the process. So, yeah, man, I feel for him. That fumble at the end of that game where it looks like just a button got pushed that he had no control over to let the ball go. Beyond that, he's had an incredible year, and I think it'll be good for college football to have a healthy Haynes King, and definitely good for the Yellow Jackets to have a healthy Haynes King back next year.
There was a picture, and it wasn't a GIF. What do you call it? Is that a GIF or GIF?
Or a meme, yeah.
Yeah,
GIF,
but it
meme,
was
whatever.
a picture of a body that had red on every part of his body that may have a bumps or bruise. He was completely red, like sunburned during that and after that Georgia game. Tim Beck is the head coach at Coastal Carolina. He made a comment this week about the NIL and college football as being a coach. You're not building a program anymore. This isn't a program. Each year you just build a team.
Say that again.
You're not building a program anymore. This isn't a program. Each year you just build a team.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
And like in the NFL is more about building a program because you know I'm going to have my quarterback for 5 years probably, right? I've signed him to this 5-year contract. We have these guys under contract, and we have this. So that's more of a program. Yeah, now it's building a team. If you can build a program now, then you can really do something. But I think it's, yeah, especially at those levels, at Coastal Carolina's level, yeah, you're building a team because the minute, look, Matthew McDoom just signed with Cincinnati. They're one of their players, Coastal, that was really good cornerback. Well, that's a program guy in the past, right? Someone you build around.
Yep.
Well, you can't rely on that. So, yeah, you're building a team. Yeah, it's all about right now. It's essentially fantasy football.
That's a good
point. Yeah, I mean, essentially every year you hope you have some keepers, but other than that, you're kind of at the drawing board almost all the time.
Yeah, I mean, when I hear the NIL, it just sounds funny to me. It just sounds like I don't know, the NIL.
Facebook.
But, yeah, I mean, that's basically what you're doing right now is you're building a team year to year, and you can't account for what you'll have. It's, I guess, like this Haynes King story where people were wondering whether he was going to be on the team next year. And, you know, you don't know who's going to be on the team from year to year. So, yeah, that's – I don't know, guys. We're like in year 4 of this at this point, or year 3 or whatever it is. I think it's, pretty clear. Like this NIL thing's pretty disruptive. And, yeah, you're moving year to year with a brand new chest of toys. Sometimes some of the old ones come with you, but a lot of times you're kind of reorganizing and redoing your locker room every single year. So that's just the reality of it. I think everybody's kind of made it clear how disruptive this is and how crazy it is, but that's the sport, and that's what the sport's found itself doing now at this point, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. So if you're not used to it, which I don't know how you wouldn't be at this point, it's time to get used to it. And I did think, going back to Haynes King for 1 minute, after that question was asked about, because I went and looked at it, because I was curious, like, was there really a question about him being back? And I guess it's more of like, because of NIL, people just, you don't know a young quarterback behind you and all that. But I think the most notable thing was that he's going to play in the bowl game despite his shoulder being mangled. So that just shows his toughness and his commitment to his team right there. I don't know how you can't love him if you're a Georgia Tech fan, which I'm sure many do, because most guys would absolutely go and get that shoulder worked on and not go play in some bowl game that's not going to have playoff implications. But he's going to play in that bowl game, so kudos to him. And that's a guy to definitely build that new team next year for Brent Key around is Haynes King.
Well, there's some coaches who want fans to give more and more and more, or athletic departments to give more and more and more. LSU's Brian Kelly, who at times can maybe step on his own, you know what, or say things that don't make sense, or you don't get him all the time. He still won a hell of a lot of football games, but he's putting his money and his family's money where his mouth is. He and his wife and the Kelly family are going to match up to $1 million when it comes to whatever they raise when it's NIL, up to $1 million. Now, I know that but he makes 7, 8, 9, 10 million. So what, man? Would you do this? Would I do 10,000 right now? So good for Brian Kelly and his family, his wife and Brian Kelly for putting an extra $1 million. Match it, and you have $2 million into their NIL fund.
Yeah, and he's one of the ones that was, kind of complaining, or I don't know, maybe it was a little bit of both, complaining or stating like where they were. Would you call it complaining? Whining. Garrett calls it whining about where they were. So, I mean, the other thing is, if you're complaining about how much money that nobody else is putting in and they're paying you $10 million a year, I think that's one of the things that's going to come back. And look, Mike Gundy experienced it in a big way last week, right? In that, he can say like, well, we don't have the money for NL, and they're like, well, we have money to pay you $8-9 million a year. So, why are you asking everybody else for money, but not doing it yourself? Whether they should or not, is up to each coach. But I think it's a good move to do if you can.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth the effort to put your money where your mouth is if you're asking others for money. So, yeah, good for Brian Kelly, and I'm sure he's not the only coach that's done this, and I feel like I've seen this story maybe elsewhere before. Maybe not. Maybe he is stepping out on a branch by himself, and if it's successful, then I'm sure others would follow suit. I don't pay as close attention to the NIL part of things and how all that works as just the actual other stuff with the games and transfers and all that. But obviously NIL is very important, and LSU's got to be right there along with their peers, or else they risk falling behind. And he certainly doesn't have a whole lot of leg to stand on if they don't, perform. So he needs the best players to do that, and, good for him, I guess, to spend some of his money helping his team improve.
All right, Scott Frost has made an effect already. It's been just, 2 or 3 days or so. This is from Matt Marshall. UCF season ticket wait list surges now to 2,500 after Frost was hired, coming back for Era 2.0. Gifts are up as well. UCF, a nice little nudge or more, a nice shove in trying to bring even more people to want season tickets at UCF. This seems like so far, and it's early, has been nothing but positive. And he hadn't coached a game again yet, but it seemed like this has been almost 100% happy bringing him back, and, of course, people excited. And that's what you got to do when you hire a new coach, is you're trying to reinvigorate the fan base too.
Well, look, they felt it was the perfect match before. And nothing, if you're a UCF fan, what's changed on your end other than your conference and all that, which is, look, the degree of difficulty is much harder for Scott Frost now. But as far as most UCF fans are concerned, what he did at Nebraska matter? Does it matter at all?
No.
No, it doesn't. So, yeah, like I'm sure there's a few that are like, well, I mean, he left and went to Nebraska, but most people, well, Nebraska's not here. That wasn't the best fit. So, yeah, I think that he's in a good spot to not have to worry about that. Because, yeah, if I'm your run-of-the-mill donor, season ticket holder, UCF fan, what happened in Lincoln doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care anything about Nebraska if I'm a UCF fan. It has no bearing whatsoever on this job unless some of the demons there that haunted him follow him. And if so, that's a Scott Frost issue, not a Nebraska thing. So, yeah, I mean, Nebraska's in the rear view as far as I'm concerned. And I would think that he would be the one leading the charge in that way of thinking. So it's cool to see people getting excited. There's been a lack of it for the past couple of years in Orlando. I think there was some level of it a year ago, and then they did not perform as well as a lot of people expected. And then this year certainly had some raised expectations and obviously led to no bowl game and a coaching change. Thank you, Gus Malzahn, for being the one to take the first step out the door and save them the buyout. That was the nice thing to do, and that led them to here in this Scott Frost reunion, where I think there is genuine, real excitement and the belief that they can actually capitalize and ride this wave a bit more than they were able to do with Gus Malzahn. And having some extra donations and just general discussion and electricity in the air because of that is obviously a good sign. So, yeah, I'd imagine there's probably some people who maybe weren't as much fans of Malzahn or just maybe loved Frost a lot that are back in the fold now. And that's good to see for UCF. Now you got to go get the right guys with that support and get this thing back on track.
SMU defensive coordinator Scott Simons has signed a contract extension. Of course, it's been one heck of a great year for SMU in football, athletics, and more. Headed to the college football playoff. Rhett Lashley announcing that Simons, their defensive coordinator, has been returned. He also was a semifinalist for that Broyles Award for the best assistant coach in college football.
Yeah, he's a damn good coordinator. I think his next move is not going to be as a coordinator anywhere. I think it'll probably be as a head coach.
Yeah, probably. I think that's just a good move for SMU to make, reward your guys, and I think their defense is perhaps a little bit underrated. When people talk about SMU, they typically talk about Kevin Jennings. I think Brashard Smith's probably a little bit underrated as well. Maybe not in ACC circles since a lot of teams saw him, but he had an incredible year. Jennings, obviously the man, and that was the case for most of the year, but really made it clear to the point of kicking Preston Stone into the transfer portal, basically. So the offense has been very good, but, I mean, defensively, I think that's where they've really made their bones, and so he's done a great job, and just makes sense to reward a guy that's helped you get to the freaking college football playoffs. So that's another example of just no-brainer. What you do is you maintain your staff as best as you possibly can, but that's what SMU supporters need to do as well. So they need to pony up, no pun intended, to keep those types of guys around as long as possible. So SMU's doing that, and that's good for that program.
Top 25 rushing defense, top 25 defense in FBS, fourth-rated rushing defense, and a lot of top 10 and 15 and 20 rankings of the other defensive stats. Austin Armstrong, Florida co-defensive coordinator, has told the Gators he's accepting the job to join Willie Fritz at Houston as they move on, as they continue to revamp their staff.
Good job, Austin Armstrong. Gainesville is a hole of a town, and you are better off for leaving it. No, he's not the defensive coordinator really there anymore. It's Ron Roberts. He's young. This is a great football mind. He might be the defensive version of Ben Arbuckle that Oklahoma just hired as their offensive coordinator. This is Shieldwood is a really good coach that they lost, and replacing him with another really good young coach, a great hire, Willie Fritz's part, and not surprised that Willie Fritz makes great hires because he's just really good at that.
Yeah, I don't know how good this hire is. I've seen split opinions on it. I think people giving Ron Roberts most of the credit for why Florida's defense improved and less so Armstrong. So I don't know. I didn't watch them closely enough to pretend to have any inkling of an idea of how much impact one guy had over the other. But I know that it wasn't just unanimous like, oh, man, home run for Fritz. Obviously, big shoes to fill with Shieldwood off to Lubbock, and so that's going to be tough to replace because their defense was really good last year and gave a lot of the Big 12 fits. I mean, Dave Aranda saying, and they had one of the better offenses in the league, but Dave Aranda saying that was their biggest challenge of the year, and they played some pretty solid defenses. So those are going to be big stakes, I think, for the Cougs. I mean, obviously they've already made the move to help out their offense. They've already started to do what they can to try to keep that side of the ball building. But on the defensive side, I think you rolled in there and got that cooking pretty quickly. And now, yeah, can he keep it going with Shieldwood no longer there? But, yeah, I've seen kind of mixed reaction, but I don't know. Good to see them get this search done, though, and get him on campus and get him to recruiting and doing the things he needs to do to get them ready for spring.
Our buddy Chad Brendel from Bearcat Journal covers Cincinnati. That the staff, Coach Satterfield and company, are parting ways with Nate Fuqua, who's an up-and-coming coach. Kerry Combs also, of course, a part of that staff, changing as they try to – and I saw the response to this from some Cincinnati fans was, this sounds like the kind of move that a coach who's on the hot seat will make. And we've seen that before. Doesn't mean that you just start firing everybody because of it, but you want to change and shake things up a little bit. And so Fuqua is out on the staff with Scott Satterfield.
Yeah, Scott Satterfield, they look like they're on the cusp of maybe turning the corner there, and not surprised to see that they have, moved on from a coach and are trying to shake things up because he's got to really do something this year, doesn't he? I mean, to justify that, or he's going to be maybe a little bit up against it.
I think he's probably going to get fired if he doesn't make a bowl game next year because there's no thing that he's done. They're not on the cusp of jack. I mean, they got 5 wins with like a month to go and then proceeded to lose out the remainder of the season. So he's on the cusp of getting fired if they don't improve and get 6 wins next year. Brandon Sorsby's back. Corleone's back. So you will lose some weapons on offense, but you can go find some toys in the toy chest that is the transfer portal. I think Satterfield's a good coach. I think just Luke Fickell leaving after such an immense amount of success left a lot of bad taste in Cincy's fans' mouth, and it's been a slow process to get them on board with Satterfield and then subsequently with the results that they've had in the past couple of seasons. So I don't have, big thoughts on this particular hire. I think it's just more tweaking of a staff that happens during the offseason. But, yeah, Satterfield's got to do something next year and be productive and win some games, or else they're probably going to go on a coaching search because you're just digging yourself deeper. Although, I don't know, maybe he has a buy. Like, there's things like that we don't know about or that I don't know about off the top of my head. But I think it's pretty clear Scott Satterfield's got to win games next year, like more than 5 games, or else they're going to probably have to start looking around.
And Bill Belichick. We'll have Bruce Feldman on today at 4:30. Wrote a lengthy article about Belichick. He will succeed, but don't expect him to be there very long. We'll have Bruce today at 4:30. From Andrew Carter, according to A.D. Bubba Cunningham, that Belichick will continue his regular appearances on the Pat McAfee Show and also the Manning Cast as the head coach at North Carolina. This is brilliant. Saban used to be a part of the McAfee Show. There are some that are regular, some NFL players, pro, whatever. But the more publicity, not that he needs to have people know who he is, but in case you want to see much more of him, that's great visibility on a huge podcast. And then also with what the Manning brothers do late at night on those late night games. What are they on Sunday night? Manning?
No, it's Monday night.
Monday night football with the Manning Cast and also ESPN.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what day he's on with McAfee, but I think that's just it's a pretty smart thing to keep those things up now. Look, Doug Gottlieb took the head coaching job, a basketball job. He's still doing his Fox Sports show to try to get some, more eyes on the program. So don't blame him for it. I don't know if you can do it.
Probably also some ego thing for Gottlieb as well. You're not going to surrender your platform and talking when that's something that you've made your bread and butter on. So you get the best of both worlds there to keep doing clearly something you like, but also promote your other job as well. But yeah, it's less a podcast. I mean, it is a podcast, but it's a full-blown television show in the middle of the day on ESPN every single day. So it's a pretty big product, and McAfee's arguably the biggest name in sports media right now outside of, I don't know, Stephen A. Smith and maybe one or two others. I guess you want to throw Peyton Manning in there or guys like that. He's right there in that mix, and that's a pretty successful segment from all indications and one they enjoy doing. So, yeah, I think it's smart on Belichick's part. The dumbest thing would have been to not do it. I mean, why give up that free advertising and that free millions of people watching and listening every day type of platform in this day and age? That would have been just the dumbest choice. So, yeah, I think this was logical and smart on the part of Belichick and North Carolina to keep that train rolling, and they won't be talking about, like, the NFL and all that. They'll be talking about, I mean, I'm sure that'll, swing in and out of the conversation, but they'll be talking North Carolina football. And that first segment, that'll be more national time spent talking North Carolina football on an in-depth basis than probably in the last 10 years around the rest of America. And I know I'm being a little bit over the top there, but probably not all that much.
I don't think I would have told you that.
A whole lot of people are taking deep dives on UNC football nationally on the radio, or YouTube or whatever. So, yeah, I think that's going to be a boon for the Tar Heels football program.
So there's that, and that is smart. If he would have said no to it, it had just been a time issue. But there we are with Belichick getting to continue to be able to do that. And Cunningham would have been silly to tell Belichick, again. Craig, you have that, but I think we've said that before. Go ahead and mention it.
Yeah, it's never been official. It's something I speculated about, and I brought up like a month ago. And I remember I got a little pushback on this actually initially, but I was right. DeQuan Finn, Baylor quarterback, is applying for a medical waiver to return to college and try and get an extra year. Now, I think initially I brought up when he wasn't playing after being an NIL baby, where he got a good chunk of cash from all indications, or a good chunk of whatever the way it was given out was, and subsequently wins the starting job by a small amount because the quarterback competition just seemed never ending. So clearly there was a pretty tight battle there, but he wins it over Sawyer Robertson, plays a couple games, gets hurt, doesn't really perform that well, gets replaced by Sawyer Robertson and never saw the field again, basically. But, like, he ran, like, one play, I think, in the middle of a game. Didn't he have, like, a run or something, like a touchdown run in a late game?
Against Texas Tech, he had, like, a 30-something yard run.
In a blowout.
Yeah.
And that was the last time we saw him. So, huge investment for very little return. And so I just figured that as much as he had an injury, that maybe that injury, like you want that injury to last so that you can go get a medical hardship that you otherwise wouldn't have.
Yeah, there was a lot of speculation because
Yeah.
there's not a lot of in-depth. I tried to figure something out. I know his agent pretty well, but I couldn't get anything, and that's fine.
I just figured
But the story came out, and this is now official about a week ago, that most likely he would attempt to get the medical waiver.
Yeah, so he's applying for a medical hardship, and we'll see what the market is for DeQuan Finn out there. But, yeah, Sawyer Robertson took that job and ran with it. But, yeah, it's official that he's at least trying to get that medical waiver.
And I think one of the things about that is you bring a player and a quarterback in with the NIL, and then he loses his job because of whatever reasons. And, again, they didn't start well, remember. And then whatever injury and Sawyer comes in, and then if you're Sawyer Robertson, you don't think you want some money? And so Baylor's taking care of him. But that's what creates a little bit of, a little indigestion, because you have a guy that was paid, another guy that was getting probably a little bit, and now Sawyer being taken care of too. All right, this is one more thing, and then we get to our first guest today, which is Grayson Grundhoefer. Travis Hunter and Ashton Jeanty. Travis Hunter has now won 6 of the major trophies and awards in college football. The Walter Camp Player of the Year, the AP Player of the Year, the nation's outstanding wide receiver, because it could be a tight end, the Bolitnikoff Award, the Chuck Bednarik Award, and the Paul Hornung Award, the most versatile player, and then he had already won the Lot Impact Award. Ashton Jeanty won 2 huge awards last night and over the last couple of days. The Maxwell Award and also the Doak Walker Award. The Maxwell Award is for the best player in college football, and Doak Walker is for the nation's best running back. And, of course, tomorrow night, the ultimate, the Heisman, most likely coming down to those two. Texas Jim Thorpe Award, Jahdae Barron, and then also the Outland and Lombardi Awards went to Kelvin Banks Jr., their outstanding offensive lineman who was hurt. He said yesterday in an interview that he feels like he'll be back for their opening game against Clemson.
Well, good deal.
Those guys brought in. Have 2 players ever dominated the major awards like that in one year? I'm sure they
have.
Yeah.
But the fact that you've got so many of these that if you were just in a room and you said, okay, here's the candidates, and you'd be like, all right, if you were publicly voting for it, like if we're just sitting in a boardroom and they said, okay, the running back, the Doak Walker Award, and you're like, okay, let's start with Ashton Jeanty. You're like, oh, listen, no offense to the other guys. Who in here is not going to vote for Ashton Jeanty? Let's move on. Like the NFL Hall of Fame where they get up and they're like Lawrence Taylor, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, like give them the jacket.
I did go back and look at because you do, I don't know what that survey is when you vote on. I did vote for Jahdae Barron for Jim Thorpe Award and Banks for both the offensive and interior lineman awards. The Doak Walker with Jeanty. Bolitnikoff, I did vote for Nash, the young man who didn't get a lot of attention, who had the most catches, most yards, and most touchdowns receiving for the season in college football. All right. Yeah, Kim goes, you guys remember Charles Woodson and Peyton Manning, both in the same year, that put up monstrous numbers. When we come back, we'll hear from Grayson Grundhoefer on Baylor picking up a big, monstrous fire hydrant on the defensive line from A&M, and so much more. And this is 365 Sports. Petty Clinic, LowT.com. Dr. Ken Petty can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and perhaps used to be. As you get older, your testosterone level can also drop. It doesn't mean everybody. 1 out of every 3 to 4 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone, and what that can do, create a lack of energy, create a problem with your sex drive, create a problem with even more than that with ED. It could also, your focus, your eating habits, your sleeping habits, a lot of that, you just don't feel right. Maybe you have one or two of those symptoms, and if you have the full-blown, full-meal deal, that's not good either. Dr. Petty, contact him at pettycliniclot.com. He will set you up with an appointment to get your blood work, take care of that appointment, get the results, check your testosterone level, and if it is too low, he can put you in a program to increase your testosterone level so you can be the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be at pettycliniclot.com.
Don't miss the best price deals during the wrap-up the year sales event at Allen Samuels. Save big on the truck you've been looking for, like the new 2025 Rams. Designed to be durable, functional, and stylish, Ram trucks give you that first-class feel. Hurry in and shop our great selection in-store or online today. Shop an award-winning dealership with award-winning product. Allen Samuels in Waco.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Our communities are facing unprecedented times. At Boozer's Jewelers, we care about you and your family. If you're like me, your home has unwanted or unused jewelry lying around. They can have value, and that means we can turn that jewelry into instant cash. This is a great way to get the most value from your unwanted jewelry. At Boozer's Jewelers, we buy all kinds of unused jewelry. So give us a call and let us give you peace of mind and cash for your unwanted or unused jewelry.
If you want quality and personalized service for all your air conditioning and heating needs, call Tradesman Services. They're a family-owned and operated company that has served Texans for over 30 years. Tradesman offers maintenance plans starting at just $12 per month and a free service call for all new customers. They're also experts in geothermal design, installation, and service. Visit them online at coolingwaco.com.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
All right, here we go. This 3 o'clock hour taking you up until around 6 o'clock on this Friday. Grayson earlier today with the note that Samu Tamanu Pepe, defensive lineman nose tackle from A&M, has committed to play for Dave Aranda and Baylor. Did I get that about right, Grayson?
I mean, the way that I've heard is pretty similar to that. I think it's Taumanu Pepe is how you say his last name. But either way, I mean, massive addition, guys. I mean, this was one of the first guys that this Baylor staff got on campus. We're talking about a position that is a major need, not only going into next year because they lose Linus Noel, but I also think it's kind of been a position that's been a bit of a revolving door for Baylor a lot since Apuika left. And now you're getting a guy that has 3 years of eligibility. So you have an opportunity here to solidify the position for 3 years. He's 6'3", 350 pounds. So very similar to what everyone saw with Apu when he first got to Baylor. And he's just one of those guys that, I mean, he's going to anchor this defensive line. He's going to be very hard to move. He's going to eat up double teams and really allow these linebackers to thrive even more. So this was a major position of need, a major focus for Baylor. This gives them a much better opportunity at having a more well-rounded defense and specifically be able to stop the run at a higher level.
Yeah, that was something they weren't great at. Grayson, as you know, they weren't terrible at it, but they could have been better. And he's a run stuffer. So where else did they go after this? What's the need, like, when the portal closes and they open their eyes, where they say, we have to have this?
Definitely a couple positions that I have in mind there. I think the first two that my eyes go to immediately are edge and wide receiver. Those are the first two that really stand out. Obviously, at edge, Baylor's going to lose Steve Linton and Garmin Randolph, two guys that were very productive for Baylor this year. And honestly, I think we saw what happens when Baylor's defense has guys who are true difference makers there. And Steve Linton at times this year just kind of jumped off the screen. So losing him, you're going to have to find guys to replace some of that production and some of that, quick twitch athleticism off the edge. They're going to have to find some guys to kind of come in and solve that problem. At wide receiver, it's pretty obvious. You look at the depth chart, it's basically Josh Cameron and then a lot of guys who haven't played a lot. I know the staff has very high hopes in Jaden Porter. I do as well, but he's still a young guy who's just going to be in his second year next season. So a lot to replace there. They do have Michael Trigg, who gives them obviously an option there at tight end and in the slot, but they need more wide receivers, more weapons for Sora Robertson to throw the ball to. Josh Cameron's a very good one, but they need more proven commodities there. So I think that's another position that I'm definitely keeping my eye on. Outside of that, they're probably going to take a linebacker. That seems very obvious up to this point, as they've already had a visitor on campus at that position. Cornerback seems likely, and then I think safety seems rather likely as well. So still a lot of needs to fill out, a lot of things that I'm definitely looking at. Offensive line is another one, probably going to take at least one there. So lots of different moving parts here, and I think that's going to lead to a fun next couple weeks.
Grayson, since you and I last talked, been a couple more additions to the transfer portal. Can't remember if we were talking about Carmelo Jones or not. I don't know if that had been official, but he jumps in the transfer portal. Jonah Burton, I don't think that's much of a surprise, but just saw Jacquez Evans entered the transfer portal as well. So just any thoughts on those guys, and I guess Evans being the latest. I know that there was hopes he was going to be impactful last year, and just obviously there's changes going on. So your thoughts on the latest changes to the roster?
Decisions have to be made. And he sat out this year to maintain his eligibility. And so now there's this opportunity for him to get another year back and play college football. And unfortunately for him, he just was hurt all year. And that's not to say that he would have had this massive impact, but I do think he would have had more of an impact had he not gotten hurt. So then it became a thing where, he might as well sit out and have a full healthy year. But then on the flip side, the discussion and the decision for Baylor is, well, do you just run it back or do you go try to find an upgrade from the portal? And I think that's where, some of this is kind of a back and forth on the decision process, right? Jacquez Evans obviously trying to find another year, whether that's at Baylor or somewhere else, and Baylor trying to figure out their scholarship situation, figure out, where their needs are and what they want to utilize those spots on. So yeah, it's kind of one of those things. He wasn't very productive in his 1 year at Baylor. A big part of that is injury related, but some of it is just getting passed up, by other guys on the roster. So yeah, tough to see, he didn't really, make the impact that I think many people were hoping for. But yeah, so that's one. Jonah Burton, not really a surprise. I'm sure he wants to get on the field and play more. Carmelo Jones, another one to get on the field and play more. I think just kind of most of these guys are just buried on the depth chart, and that's kind of been the story for the guys who have left Baylor. Baylor's done a really good job of keeping guys who they want to keep, and that has continued so far this offseason.
Grayson, it was about this time last year, correct me if I'm wrong, when GXG ramped up a lot and they started to renew players because there were thoughts about Caden Jenkins, who might have been the very first one that they were able to kind of get to and get him confirmed for next year. And there were others, and it looked like that, like the rats were jumping off a ship type of thing. Have they already done that with those who were a part of the team that had the nice run at the end? Have they taken care of those to even do that during the season, or is that something you do now?
based on what I've heard, those conversations and those kind of, I guess, decisions have already been made. Lots of those conversations were happening right as the season ended. Some of those conversations were happening earlier. But I would say that I think Baylor's done a really nice job being proactive, right? Being proactive with their current roster, proactive with the guys that they absolutely know they need to keep. And then also being proactive with just the whole roster, right? Because you got to let guys know where they stand so they can kind of figure out, do they want to stay at Baylor? Do they want to jump into the portal, go find another option? But yes, those conversations have been had so that, and I think it's important, right, that Baylor had those conversations so that when you go into this transfer portal period, you kind of know who's on your roster and kind of what you're working with and the areas you need to address. And the conversations that you had, kind of off of those conversations, then kind of, acting on those through the transfer portal. And so I think those are some of the things that were very important to do before the transfer portal opened. And based on what I've heard, I think Baylor's done a really nice job of, solidifying a lot of things with their roster.
Grayson Grunhafer, Stick'em365.com, lead recruiting analyst, co-host of the Bearcast with us.
Grayson, what do you think the plan is at backup quarterback overall? Sawyer Robertson is locked in. Obviously, they've got true freshmen coming in. But do you think that A&M went and got Jacob Zeno? I think their plan is for him to be the backup quarterback. Is there someone like that maybe in the offing for the Bears?
I think that so for me, that's kind of a decision that I feel like the staff's going to have to go through and make. For me, I would probably take another quarterback. I just, as much as I like Nate Bennett and Edward Griffin, who's going to be a true freshman that's early enrolling, I just think it's nice to have another veteran in the room, especially as you kind of go into this season with all these expectations. It just would be really tough if you do lose Sawyer, and then let's just say these young guys aren't quite ready, and then you kind of lose the season. You know what I mean? And so I just feel like having a guy that's had more experience and who can at least ride the ship a little bit if Sawyer does miss some time could be very valuable for Baylor. So now I will say I think that those decisions, honestly, for a backup quarterback, I think there's a situation where Baylor just waits until spring. Because you got to remember, a lot of these guys are still going into their, programs this year, and they're going to battle it out during spring football, and then decisions are going to be made, and the transfer portal opens again there. And so Baylor could have an opportunity post-spring to go figure out that backup quarterback position, and it would give them time to watch Nate Bennett and Edward Griffin and kind of see, where those guys are at. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now on that process. I think it's one that I've been kind of keeping an eye on, and I do think that as of right now, I would tell you, yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense to add one. But I also think being patient and waiting out the process is not a bad decision either.
What's your thoughts on the Texas Bowl selection and just the amount of LSU transfer portal entries that we've seen? And can this program kind of block out LSU doesn't want to be there and this is a layup, and, kind of block out that and take this game the same way they've taken all of their games and ensure that whether LSU's weakened or not, in 10 years, it's going to say you beat LSU. And that's all that people are going to be curious about. Not that, the backup left tackle didn't play or something. So, Grayson, do you think they have the ability to kind of block that out and take this as though they're playing like Joe Burrow, basically, there for the Tigers?
The way they've played during the back half of the year tells me that they're going to show up in this game and really be ready to try to win it. I think there's a sense with this team, and you get it a lot of times in college football, where teams go on a run and the run is great, but then they also go to the bowl game and take care of business. And that really, kind of gives you the momentum and propels you into the next season. It feels like that's kind of where Baylor is trending at right now, that they're kind of just going to continue pushing this wave into the offseason. Now, that doesn't mean that LSU is just going to roll over. I mean, they got Garrett Nussmeier coming back. He announced that. So I think he's playing in the bowl game. And when you have a really good quarterback like that, a guy that's got NFL talent, I mean, he could go in there and put up 30-something points on you, and then all of a sudden it's a really close game, or maybe you lose it. And then on the flip side, LSU also has a lot of talented guys. And so it's important to remember that even though they're losing guys, LSU is very talented. They recruit at a very high level. It's a blue blood program. It's a program that's had a lot of success, has a lot of tradition, and I don't expect them to roll over in Houston. And so that means Baylor's going to have to show up, play really well. I do think if Baylor shows up and plays like they have over the last 6 weeks, I think they're going to win this game. But I think in general, it's just a great opportunity for this Baylor program, and they need to take advantage of it.
All right, so we know that Sam Houston State's got a list, including Matthew Pallage, who's there. That's where he's from. His family is from. Obviously, Rashard Samples is a nice name in that mix. That depends on who you see and who you talk to. I think Pallage will be thrilled to have the opportunity. I also think he likes being at Baylor. He's been there twice. Do they have somebody you think already in mind, in fact, if Pallage takes the job or is offered and takes the job at his alma mater?
You know, I think that they probably have someone in mind. I'm not really sure where they would go, though. I don't have specific names in mind that they would probably go after to replace Pallage, but I'm sure Dave Rand has a list of guys that he would like to go and get to be the safeties coach. I would also say that, you know, there were 6 names mentioned by Dave Texas football. So it's a very open competition. It feels like it's actually a pretty impressive list for Sam Houston. I think in general, they're probably going to end up with a pretty good coach. Rashad Samples, like you mentioned, seems like the hot name there. Sean Bell was also mentioned as one of the top 6 candidates as well, which is obviously that's news for Baylor fans, as he was at Baylor for a while. And then now is obviously the quarterback coach at Houston. But I think in general, if Pallage does take this job, it's great for him, right? For him to get a head coaching opportunity, for him to advance in his career. That's awesome. I think the Baylor staff would love that for him. And then on the flip side, I think Baylor's definitely going to have a list, and they're going to have a list of names that they want to go after if Pallage does leave. And we're kind of in wait and see mode on that, though.
Last thing, everybody's adding right now. Not a lot, but there are people who are adding more than others, and then they'll do it again at the first of the year and after spring drills or spring practices. Is there somebody that Baylor really wanted? You mentioned the defense nose tackle from A&M. Was there somebody else out there early on who's in the portal that Baylor wanted that they missed on?
I mean, I think if you're going to go through just guys who visited, I mean, they had UCF transfer cornerback Chasen Johnson on campus. He ended up committing to USC, I believe, yesterday or a couple days ago. So I think there was clear interest there, right? I think that for Baylor, the other part about this is there's a fine line, right? Like if you're going to spend all your NIL on, you know, a player or 2 players, it's going to be kind of difficult. You have to make those decisions. So I think there were a lot of guys who Baylor looked at and who Baylor likes, but also they're not going to blow all their NIL money on 1 or 2 guys, right? They need to spread it out. They got multiple positions they need to address. So as you see some of these higher name guys, I think Baylor did try to get in on some of them. And then there's still some out there who Baylor is in on. And I think that's the give and take, right? Through the NIL and through transfer portal process, you're going to have a lot of conversations with a lot of agents, with a lot of different people to kind of figure out, you know, what does the prospect want? You know, what does the kid want? What's kind of the priority? And I think Baylor's kind of trying to go through that process. And honestly, they've been very quiet through the process as well. You know, if you follow a lot of national guys, you're not seeing a lot of reporting on Baylor right now. I mean, I think a part of that is because Baylor is playing a patient game, but they've also, in my eyes, identified a lot of their top targets. And now it's just about getting those guys on campus and then going from there. But they're not trying to get their name out there. They're not trying to tell everyone who they're recruiting. They're not trying to, you know, say that, oh, we're recruiting at this high level. They're just kind of taking it day by day, and they're going to get the prospects that they want. And I've been honestly pretty impressed by that, because if you look across the country, I mean, almost every program has been mentioned a lot by national writers, and Baylor's one of the ones that truly hasn't been very much.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Enjoy the weekend. The story from earlier today on a monstrous nose tackle from A&M, and Baylor gets him. Brought back memories of Siaka Ika Apu, as they called him, from LSU, who was a phenomenal player for them for a couple of years. All right, when we come back, what do we have, Paul? Because Josh Neighbors is later in the show now,
we're open now at 4
All right,
o'clock.
let's get into the Big 12 bowl games, and then also a couple of other nuggets about the college football playoffs. And a note or two about the FCS playoffs, too, with not climate change, a different address after this year. That and more. Hope you are enjoying what we do. We appreciate the fact you're here with us today and every day, 365 Sports. The Baylor Club. Got some new notes for them. Mike Mosel's the general manager, but also I've mentioned the Sikkim 365 and also Sikkim or 365 Sports opportunities. The Baylor Club, listeners can now join with up to 75% off the initiation fees and no dues until 2025. Yeah, that's just a month from now, but 75% off initiation fees. Whether you're a university staff, a local resident, visiting from out of town, Waco's premier social club, open to everyone, and come see what they're all about. I have eaten there before. I've had a banquet or 2 or 5 there before. I know Paul's eaten there before with his mom and family. And then also we've been to events there before when coaches have been introduced and so much more. And then, of course, no more game days in football. But before you know it, that's coming up again next September. Book a membership lunch if you want. Tell them about 365 Sports or Sikkim 365 Radio and get a complimentary VIP tour of the Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium. Go to Facebook for more information or call them at 254-710-8106.
Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season. Bird Colgan Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 selling truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, 47 years in a row. Come see the largest showroom in Texas and experience better at Bird Colgan Ford. Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
It's football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, season these marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate muscle, brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select Choice and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue, cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend's Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
I got a note from Paxton. I'm going to give you this on the college football first-round host sites next weekend, and then turn around and we will break down the Big 12 and their bowl games. Indiana at Notre Dame, at least for now. Kickoff temperatures in the upper 20s. Conditions, chance of light snow. SMU at Penn State. Kickoff temperatures mid-20s. Conditions cloudy. Clemson at Texas. Kickoff temperatures a balmy heat wave of upper 50s. Conditions are sunny. And Tennessee at Ohio State. In Columbus, kickoff temperatures low 20s. Conditions are partly cloudy. I brought this up yesterday. 3 of the 4 sites are 100,000 or more capacity stadiums, and Notre Dame, as we were mentioned yesterday, 80,000. Do you think that they will ever get to a point where they would make sure that the first-round buys or first-round host sites are going to be the 80 to 100,000 seat stadiums, or is that just happenstance?
I think this year it's just happenstance. It's going to be in flux. I think what this year showed, at least initially, is that until, the big dogs try to bend the rules, or redirect the rules more in their favor, then, it's going to be a little more random chance. I mean, there was, you're a couple points away in a couple of big-time Big Ten and SEC games from seeds being kind of completely chaotic in this, and some teams that you wouldn't expect having home games. SMU was this close to maybe even having one. So, we'll see.
What was your exact question again?
Do you think that there's two things that I wondered about when it came to the college football seedings? Would they seed teams to avoid immediate rematches within the larger conferences? And or, like, for example, let's say there was a chance that Texas was going to end up playing Georgia if the way it was seeded. Now, they played each other, so that was kind of maybe not a good hypothetical. But would they almost plant seeds in certain ways where they would avoid an immediate rematch, or SEC versus SEC, or Big Ten versus Big Ten? And the first-round playoff host sites are 3 100,000-seat capacity stadiums and one that's 80,000. And would they also create the seating to avoid somebody with the seating capacity of 50,000 hosting a game?
I mean, on the first part, I think if you can avoid that, I think you try to, but you don't manipulate the whole bracket to do that. Like, if there's a razor-thin margin like that, I don't know why they did what they did at the back end of the bracket with Clemson and SMU. That made absolutely no sense whatsoever. No. Like, the committee should be turned on its head just for putting the team that just beat the team a day before. Like, guys, the day before they beat them in a very...
It was the second to last result of the night.
Yes, in front of millions of people. They beat them, and then the next day they put them behind them. Like, that made no effing sense, and you avoided SMU Texas as a result of that. Like, what were they doing? That made no sense. But I do think that you are going to try and avoid those matchups. I don't know about that part of it, though. I think it's probably just going to take them being put into that situation where enough pressure builds up, you're like, oh, damn, now we got to try and avoid this. I think you just go by the way that you go, though, and you hope that it just falls to where those just naturally are avoided. But, yeah, I don't know. They managed to do it this year without any problem, but we'll see if that continues to be the case. And, look, with a bigger bracket, it'll probably be easier to avoid those types of things. But then again, you've got more teams, so you're naturally going to have, like, South Carolina's going to have to play maybe Georgia again in, like, the second round or even the first round. I don't know.
They wish.
But there's inevitably, the longer you go, there's going to be rematches like that. And I think on the stadium thing, like, you can't manipulate the seedings for stadium sizes. Like, that people, I mean, the torches and pitchforks, maybe not in the Southeast, would be brought out, but I think the rest of the country would bring those out pretty quickly if you started trying to manipulate it where all of a sudden only teams with 90-plus thousand fans get to host first-round playoff games. I think that would be a clear violation of what this entire enterprise is all about. And at that point, if you're going to do that, break off and do your stupid little Super League, and let's see how successful that thing's going to be, because that would be a slap in the face of and there's already been a few of those, but that would be a true slap in the face of the actual wins and losses to try and manipulate seedings to get the bigger stadium. I don't think that'll be the case.
All right, the Big 12 schedule, the bowl schedule, opens up with West Virginia. Rich Rod, of course, is their new head coach, and they will play Rutgers, who had a nice run with Memphis. Memphis, Metal, who most of you have blocked, would probably say something now, but you won't see him since most of you have blocked him. But that's a nice little dicey matchup. Memphis, of course, man, what a great finish near the end of the year for them. They are explosive, and that game will be on Tuesday. That's next week at Toyota Stadium up in Frisco.
Yeah, well, Rich Rod was introduced today. Let's talk about that. Had his big press conference, had a heckler thrown out that was yelling in the midst of the press conference, and that became a whole ordeal, but he handled it really well with a nice little quip about the guy being a Pitt fan. So that won a lot of people over. He's got the whole support of McAfee and that crowd, and they had him on the show and were peppering him with some good questions, and I think one of them was about what was it? It was about bringing back a rivalry, and it was about Marshall, I think is what it was. It was about bringing back the Marshall game, and his response was, if you think I've spent 1 second thinking about Marshall since I took this job. So, again, he nailed that answer and had everybody, oh, my God, you're the greatest thing. So he's in his honeymoon period for sure. He handled the heckler. He handled McAfee and that appearance, and you figure that he would on the latter, but I think people are juiced up and excited for Rich Rod, and there are going to be their detractors that are not on board with this, and he'll have to win them over. And the key word there is win. If he does that, everybody will get back on board. It's really that simple. That's how it works in college football. As far as this bowl game goes, I think everybody's thinking about Rich Rod. And so this will be a nice send-off for the seniors. I'm sure he'll be involved to some extent as far as just being around practices and whatnot. But I think this is a nice little bookmark to one regime, even though Neil Brown won't be around for it, and just a nice send-off for the seniors. And then a lot of the focus will obviously be on, hey, as soon as this is over, it's time for the Rich Rod era to get back into full swing. So I hope they can have a good performance. They're going to have their work cut out for them, though, because I think Memphis is going to be ready to play in this bad boy. And they've got a good team, really good team, with a lot of talented players, gunslinger there, Seth Hennigan from Texas. And, I think this will be a tough test for the Mountaineers. But I honestly don't know what to expect because Neil Brown's gone, and they're in the midst of a coaching change, so you never know with these bowl performances. But I think Memphis will be geared up, so the Mountaineers should be ready. And I think it'd be a great thing if you could take all of this goodwill and go win your bowl game when maybe not a lot of attention's on that, and just be a nice little extra present in the Christmas stocking.
Well, I will say this. Again, things have changed in so many ways. I remember as a younger kid, even in college or whatever, I loved bowl season. I absolutely just could not wait. Games in the afternoon, of course, out of school, college or whatever. And you don't know. You have no idea what to expect. And Memphis, I think, will probably play very, very well. And maybe West Virginia, the players who are coming back, especially wanting to show Rich Rod, although they have game film, of what they can do. But I have no idea. But I would say that Memphis here is going to be a tough out for West Virginia.
Yeah, they're very tough. I watched Memphis a few times this year. Seth Hennigan, it looks like I haven't heard about any opt-outs for this game either of the guys from Memphis because a lot of them, this is a really good stage for them to show what they can do. And on a Rich Rod's press conference real quick, I just want everyone to know that there are not many life forms, perhaps in the entire galaxy, lower than heckler. There is.
It says a stand-up comedian for sure.
I mean, the lowest of the low.
Oh, my. Last night didn't go well?
No, last night was great. I'm just telling you, just from I had a guy in Shreveport, Louisiana, about 17 years ago that they wouldn't kick out of the club. And it got worse and worse. It turns out he was the club owner's cousin or something. But, I mean, they're just low. And so if you find yourself, I'm going to warn people, if you find yourself with the need to heckle, whether it's a press conference, a comedian, even a politician, and I have very low opinions of those people, but even of them, you go to therapy right away. You say, this is my low point because I'm harassing this person on a microphone.
Well, they had a heckler I didn't see the press conference. Craig.
Yeah, no, he handled it beautifully. I mean, he could not have handled it any better than he did, and even got the last joke in on that heckler. So that heckler just getting escorted out of the press conference and then getting dunked on, mic dropped at the end of it, like that guy or whoever, girl, I don't know who it was, but they're probably not smart enough to understand they got owned, actually. They probably are on Twitter right now, I totally owned Rich Rod's press conference. And it's no, it's the other way around, but you know how that works. But, yeah, I think Rich Rod aced his press conference from what I saw, and also the McAfee appearance, and he's got people fired up. And I think He also even addressed, like, the fact that he left and that whole ordeal and the sour taste that left in a lot of people's mouths. And he said, like, I understand people being upset, but at least they care, and that he made a mistake. He said flat out, he said, I made a mistake in leaving, and he said that he's going to, earn their support being back at West Virginia. So I think he handled that part of it well, that they're going to go out there and try to earn the support of those that maybe don't feel all that warm and rosy about him being back because of the way that he left. So, yeah, none of that has a bearing in this bowl game, really. I do think you made an interesting point, though. There will be guys on this team, like sophomores and freshmen and stuff, that are like, this is my tryout, basically. Like, I need to perform well because he can do whatever he wants to with this roster afterwards. And there are a lot of questions with this roster. So, from that standpoint, it's interesting. But, yeah, they're going to have a really tough test there with Memphis. Would not be surprised at all if Memphis won that game.
All right, we move on to the next one. Kansas State, which did not meet the expectations. Of course, not everybody does. But it was kind of a weird ending for them. Rutgers, Greg Schiano, Big Ten against the Big 12. It's a Saturday. That's an afternoon game Thursday. Beautiful, beautiful place in Phoenix, Arizona.
I did not get the sense, and I haven't really dug around too much, but I don't think K-State fans are all that fired up about this. I think it's, first of all, you're spending Christmas in Phoenix, which, hey, that could be great. For some people, that's probably great. Like, you might be a family that travels during Christmas break, and so this is right up your alley, and bowl games can be a lot of fun to go to. But I'm sure there's some element of, like, hey, if I'm going to miss Christmas, at least make it for, like, a playoff game or something like that, not the rate bowl, but that is, one of the better bowls that was on there. I think Rutgers is a hell of a matchup. They'll be ready to go, no doubt about it. And for all of the constant worry about what the Big Ten or the SEC are doing or how they're perceived, like, here's one of those games. Go beat Rutgers and go beat a Big Ten team and have that little feather in your cap for when the comparisons are made about who does this and who does that and who's more valuable and all these things. Like, you have a nice 2024 example of, hey, we just went and beat one team out of the Big Ten that you can put on the list, because that's what a lot of this always boils down to, is those final scorecards of your conference record by the end of it. So here's a nice little matchup with the Big Ten, and not one of their world beaters, but a very respectable program. And, should be a good little game, but it does feel like K-State would probably rather have been somewhere else, and they certainly felt like they would have been somewhere else. The season just didn't go the way they thought.
Cornelio, we're not, as far as being fired up. Big disappointing season. Bracket Cat, we are less fired up than we have ever been for any bowl in our history, Craig.
I got that sense, yeah.
And there was another one that from Bracket Cat. Many will watch on TV a huge, disappointing belly flop in November.
I think Christmas Day and December 26th, like the 3 days, 24, 25, 26, unless it is like a driving distance kind of a thing, like if you were Kansas State playing Nebraska in Kansas City or something like that, at the Arrowhead Bowl, if something existed, that just wouldn't do it for anybody, right? Like, so I get it. They're not excited. And like, hey, congratulations on a hard-fought season. Here's Rutgers, a team that none of you have ever cared about in this city ever.
Right.
And don't think about, and it's not a knock on Rutgers. If you went to Piscataway, New Jersey and said, hey, what do you guys think about Kansas State? The whole state? No, I mean the Kansas State Wildcats. Oh, the team we're playing in the bowl game? Yeah. This is the first time I've ever thought about them ever.
Yeah. I definitely got that sense when the bowl was announced. It was a disappointment. Like the season, fell short of expectations. This just kind of goes in line with that. So, yeah, K-State fans, not surprised by that reaction from some of y'all in the chat at all. That's kind of what I picked up.
AutoZone Liberty Bowl in Memphis. Texas Tech and the Red Raiders, Joey McGuire, they've already started restocking their team for next year, but this year's team playing Arkansas, an old Southwest Conference game. I love that. Playing Arkansas, that's on 6 o'clock, Friday, December 27th at Liberty Stadium. Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium.
Yeah, the soon-to-be completely remodeled.
I like this. I like this matchup. I do.
Yeah, I like it. I think. Look, the quarterbacks are all going to play. Most of the guys are going to play. Like, I guess we'll probably see about Taj Brooks and all that.
He'll play, man. There's no way. Yeah. I'd be shocked if he doesn't play.
But, yeah, I think this is going to be a good bowl game because you've got two fairly young teams here overall, as far as – and guys who pretty much intend to come back. Arkansas has lost a couple couple transfers, but Taylon Green's probably going to play in the game, which makes it better. So, yeah, rock on for the Liberty Bowl.
Yeah, I think it's a good little matchup. I think, playing an SEC team certainly enticing, and not one like in the case of playing a Big Ten team like Rutgers where you really have no feel for them whatsoever if you're a K-State fan or even really any fans. But Arkansas, that's close enough to home. There's a history there with Tech, and it's like bordering state, all of that. Like that definitely ratchets it up a little bit. So I think that's a nice little spot for Tech, a nice opportunity for them to win 9 games for the first time under Joey McGuire. They have not done that to this point, so this would be a new mark for him, and then potentially allow you to leapfrog into that double-digit win column next season. And I think for Tech, some moments in this season, like for others, where you go, man, if we had just had this tweaked a little bit, like we might have been playing for a Big 12 title, or we'd be already at 9 wins or whatever. So I think it's been a good overall season. Maybe left a little bit desired, but because of the moves they've already made, there's already a lot of excitement for what's to come. So I think if you go win game number 9, hey, that's a new mark. Boom, 10's right there now for the taking. You've got your new coaches coming in. You've got new talent that'll be coming in. You feel like this thing's still taking another step forward, whereas if you finish 8-5, that's still really respectable, but it's already what you've been doing. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And this does bring up, I've got to get to this stat here. Andrew Armstrong for Arkansas has the most bizarre stat, and I don't know how often this happens, but I have to bring it up because I don't know what else will do it. So Andrew Armstrong of Arkansas, he's a guy from Texas, okay? This is why I know who he is. Finished 7th in the country in receiving yards. 7th. He had 1,140 yards, which was only behind Nick Nash, Harold Fannin Jr. of Bowling Green, Teteroa McMillan, Jaden Higgins of Iowa State, Eric Rivers, FIU, Travis Hunter. Those are the only players that had more yards than he did in the entire country. He had 1 freaking touchdown the entire year.
78 catches, yeah.
He had 1 touchdown. The other guys on that list, 16, 9, 8, 9, 12, 14. Those guys who are all just ahead of him in yardage by 200 or less yards have like 10, 12, 13 more. He had 1 freaking touchdown.
Among the top 50 receivers in college football with, as far as receiving yards, only 2 were held to 1 touchdown. Armstrong from Arkansas and New Mexico's Luke Weissong is the other.
But he's like top 10 in yardage, and he's like 500 in actual touchdowns, because who doesn't have a touchdown that's played receiver this year? Everybody's got a touchdown. Like, that to me was just a really bizarre stat. He'll be a tough cover for that Tech secondary, which they're obviously looking to revamp, but a very winnable game, but I think a tough game too, because Arkansas's got a little something to them. I think that'll be challenging, and yeah, a little Southwest Conference flavor here, so that'll be a good one.
All right, we go to the Valero. We've been to this bowl game before. There was the game between Baylor and Washington that was like you had to go take a shower after the game without any defense.
Technically,
Terrence Ganaway had a huge game.
Outside of the Liberty Bowl, the Rate Bowl, you went when it was the Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl.
Yes.
And then I guess the Frisco Bowl we have not been to.
Yeah, you're talking about the games we've because
so
Valero Alamo Bowl, they do a great job in San Antonio, and this is that unique matchup, both in the same conference, the Big 12, but did not play each other, and because of the Pac-12 and their changes, evaporation, there were a bucket of teams that could be still assigned to some of their bowl games. And it is Saturday, December 28th, evening game, BYU, Colorado. You're going to have maybe the Heisman Trophy winner in Travis Hunter, and you're going to have 2 teams that had one hell of a nice year that nobody expected.
And maybe the top 2 picks in the draft next year, or
Shador
at least maybe
too.
the number 1 overall. But, yeah, I love this game, and I know that there's a lot of backlash that especially was apparent last weekend when this was announced because of the Big 12 versus Big 12, and I understand that. We made that clear earlier this week when we talked about this game specifically, but it is what it is. That was part of the product that you took in when you took the Pac-12 teams. Like, that was a side effect of that, nothing more. It wasn't like the Alamo Bowl or the Big 12 were out to get you, even though it felt like some of the responses felt like they were, being screwed over somehow. It's like, you know what happened, guys? The Alamo Bowl said, what's the best possible game we can put on? Oh, just so happens it's two Big 12 teams, but this will get the biggest TV rating. This will put the most butts in seats, and this will have the most discussion around it versus any other matchup they could have done. So the Alamo Bowl did its job, and this is one of the games. This might be the game I'm most looking forward to of the entire schedule of the Big 12 this postseason. I think this will be a lot of fun. And, yes, it could have been the Big 12 title game, and, yes, it could have been different, but I say you embrace it, man. This is a game that otherwise we weren't going to get to see. So BYU, you get to go play Shador and Travis Hunter.
Look, hey, would you rather have this or kind of like a random matchup?
Rutgers.
I mean, like, this is for like, okay, it's a conference game. At least it's not a conference rematch, and it's a conference game between two of the really good teams in the conference that were both surprises in their own right.
It'd be different if they play in Vanderbilt or something like that.
No, let's roll with it. Like, this was a really good conference all year long, so what if we get one more of them?
Outside of the playoff game, this will probably be the highest-rated game of the entire slate for the Big 12.
Yeah.
So, I think that's like actually a good thing because otherwise it might not be as viewed, but I think that matchup with those fan bases and that star power, that'll be one that a lot of people tune into, especially there at night. And is that on a Saturday night? Come on.
They do a great job. By the way, they will play each other next year. The 2025 schedule, BYU will be on the road at Colorado. The Pop-Tarts, oh, my God. It was the #1 bowl game last year, in my opinion. Made me laugh so hard my ribs hurt.
We've also been to this one when it was the not as awesome bowl.
Russell Athletic Bowl.
Yeah.
I don't Johnny Jefferson had 299 rushing against North Carolina.
To this day, I do not buy Russell Athletic gear because that bowl week was just cruel.
Yeah,
I'm wearing some right now.
They had two games in within a week or so of each other at the bowl game in Orlando. Iowa State, after a very disappointing thud in the championship game in Miami, will be their opponent. This is a 2:30 game, a Saturday afternoon at Camping World Stadium in Orlando.
I'll tell you this: there's going to be points.
I don't think they can outdo what they. They cannot match that Pop-Tart died on national television, and then they all just climb in and company and started devouring.
3 Pop-Tarts now.
Yeah, they've had a whole year to plan how to.
There are 3 new flavors.
My favorite was cherry.
Hey,
we've discussed this before. Wasn't it the brown sugar or cinnamon or whatever?
Yeah. So 3 new flavors, different things. Pop-Tarts is bringing it, man. They figured out the marketing aspect of it. The best news for Iowa State in this game is that Cam Ward, if he plays in this game, I will be floored and shocked. If he shows up for that one. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't think he's going to. I don't think that Restrepo or some of these guys are going to play. So they're going to see the Miami team that they would have. They're going to see the Miami team they would have rolled out if Cam Ward hadn't transferred there.
Yeah, or if they were in a college football playoff. Yeah, they would all be playing. By the way, that game again is on Saturday afternoon in Orlando. We're going to have Bruce Feldman in a moment. Craig, put a bow on that one, then we'll come back to the other ones.
I think it's a good game. I think a lot of that will also depend on, does Cam Ward play in the bowl game or not? And if so, then that will put more attention on it. If not, they'll take something away from it. But either way, a great opportunity for Iowa State. Should be a fun game. Orlando this time of year, just watch out for all the Disney folks because there's a lot of them around Christmas break that are traveling, and that's what we experienced when we were out there a few years ago. But still, it's a nice spot, and they do a good job hosting the game. So I think that'll be fun. But, a lot of my attention here will be on whether Cam Ward plays or not, or even a Restrepo. Like, if they were to have both of those guys out, that would be a bummer. And I don't know how fired up Miami is for this, but, again, going back to the bragging rights and all those conference records you'll see of, like, the Big 12 went 7-2 in bowl games or whatever. Like, this is a game where, hey, you can put a little notch next to one of the better teams in the country and one of the better teams in the ACC and have some bragging rights. And also go and get another win and add on to that all-time record that you've now set this year. Yeah. And I know it was disappointing in Arlington what happened there. I mean, it'd be impossible to not be disappointed with what happened against Arizona State. But go get a win to at least close this really good record-breaking team out with a victory. I think would leave a good taste in everybody's mouth about 2024.
By the way, back to BYU. Just to know, Kalani Sitake set up for our show next week on Tuesday.
Awesome.
So just wanted to give you a heads up on that. All right, when we come back, Bruce Feldman, wrote the story. There's no reason Belichick can't have success at UNC. Just don't expect him to last long. That is next. This is 365 Sports. TexasBeefHouse.com. What a year it has been for them. Been a sponsor of ours for a little over a year. What a year it has been for them. They online used to have the product available. How many of you, and I know a lot of you did because I would get notes from the Duvall family when you ordered a lot of product. And in fact, Kim Coulter that provided the $100 every week college football pick'em, and we'll have, I think, one more that includes all the college football playoffs to give away. And then they started these live auctions. First, it began at their location, at their ranch, just outside of Tyler. And then you could also be on like a Zoom type link to get involved in the auction. I was like, okay, how's this going to go? It was marvelous. In fact, now many other beef type distribution companies or beef companies are doing it. TexasBeefHouse.com. I don't know the exact number. I'll get that from Samantha Duvall. But I would say pretty close to 20 to 25 of these live auctions. They did 3 once in 1 month. What it does is allow you to buy beef product, steak, hamburger patties, or everything else in between at the exact price that you want. You walk into a grocery store, there is a number. It's the cost of whatever that brisket might be. There's a number for how much they are charging you per pound. How many pounds? That's the number. Or for maybe ribeye steaks or hamburger patties. You can go into a live auction and decide to pay a certain amount for whatever's up for grabs. And there's usually 45 or 50 lots available of steaks, hamburger patties, hamburger beef, ground beef, and brisket, and so much more. TexasBeefHouse.com sent me a note thanking everybody at 365 Sports for your support, and we will continue to give it to them at TexasBeefHouse.com.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION Solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
We'll get Bruce Feldman here momentarily. One other note on the college football playoffs, of course, the big boys are, the FBS will start with a game next Friday night and then games on Saturday. The FCS championships are going to move from Frisco, where they've done a great job, the championship games. The next couple of years in 25 and 26 will be in Nashville because they're renovating what used to be Pizza Hut Park, where they have it in Frisco. So they'll move to Nashville starting next year for a couple of years. We're joined by senior college football writer, columnist Bruce Feldman, theathletic.com. And, Bruce, we appreciate your time with Craig and Paul. David Smoak, thanks for your time. The Bill Belichick story, when did that get on your radar? Was it when everybody else heard about it, or had you seen or had whispers before then?
It was about a week ago. I got a text from somebody who's, from another coach. And when he referenced BB at North Carolina, I was just like, BB. And then I was like, and this person has a connection to Bill Belichick. So I was like, Bill Belichick. It just kind of blew my mind. We started searching around and couldn't find anything. And then about the only thing I had seen was one of the recruiting sites that covers North Carolina had done either a message board post or something, like a couple hours earlier. And so, we tried to vet it and see where it was going. It's still very surreal that it's actually happened, though, just you're talking about, just from this standpoint. They replaced Mac Brown, who's in his mid-70s, with another guy who's in his mid-70s. That kind of thing almost never happens. But just the fact that it's Bill Belichick, who won 6 Super Bowls, the most successful head coach in NFL history, has never been in college, and now he's going to be a college coach. It's just kind of mind-blowing.
How do you think the recruits will respond to this?
I think some will be very, very engaged and excited to talk to him because he's a legend. I mean, the guy's won 6 Super Bowls as a head coach and 8 overall. I mean, you just don't meet, he's different, and so I think there's a level of cachet there. Now, I think there's going to be a bunch of recruits who they are not going to probably either they don't know who he is or don't know probably that much about him because, kids who are getting recruited, unless they're in the portal, if you're a high school junior or even a high school senior at this point, they've had 3 of the last 4 seasons have been losing seasons. He didn't coach this year. So, there's just, unless you're a big NFL fan, you might not remember when he was in the Super Bowl last, and so I think it'll be an interesting thing. And, for a lot of kids now who are recruits, I think it's great, to meet these big name coaches, but I think a lot of them are moved by, okay, what kind of NIL deal am I getting? Now, I think some of them are going to be moved by this guy knows more about the NFL and probably playing in it and thriving in it than anybody I could play for. So I think that will be, an interesting piece of how this all unfolds.
Bruce, in the Big 12, a couple of jobs open up and are filled by guys who were there previously, Scott Frost in UCF and Rich Rodriguez in West Virginia. And I see, the circus that is in Morgantown today, and I mean that in a good way. People seem to be fired up, but there's definitely some detractors. But just what did you make of both those programs dipping back into the past and trying to rekindle that magic flame of success they had years ago?
Well, I think the Rich Rod piece is not at all surprising because he had the biggest heavy hitters in West Virginia on his side. Ken Kendrick, who owns the Arizona Diamondbacks, has always been close to Rich Rod and wanted him back. And Pat McAfee, who's like the biggest voice in sports media now, is obviously a great punter kicker for West Virginia and played for Rich Rod. I think he's very happy by this. So, I mean, he did an amazing job at West Virginia when he was there. I mean, they were a top 10 program. He's a really good offensive coach. The other thing that's huge in this case is he played there. He grew up there. He is one of them. He understands West Virginia better than anybody who's probably coaching in football right now. So I think it's a really good hire by West Virginia. I think it's going to be a pain in the behind for other Big 12 coaches because I think he will get them better. I mean, you look at what he did. He wasn't a good fit at Michigan when he got there. I mean, he took over at a weird time, and there was going to be a big transition, and they didn't really give it that much time. And he was gone. But if you look at what he just did at Jacksonville State, I mean, that's a program that just became an FBS program, and they just won a conference title. You know, he's a really good coach. Scott Frost I'm curious how that works, because he had 2 terrific seasons over, you know, the year before he got there, they were a winless team. And then in year 2, they go undefeated. But then he went home to Nebraska and he bombed miserably.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I thought he was going to be a terrific hire there, and he wasn't. You know, and digging in a little bit, when you talk to people who are on his staff at UCF, they will point out that, you know, he followed George O'Leary at UCF, and George O'Leary is kind of this hard-ass guy, and maybe a lot of the players didn't like him, but they had good players in there. And then Scott Frost's staff went in there and really connected with the players, and they responded. I don't think Gus Malzahn's the same. It's not the same kind of transitional, you know, dynamic, but he, you know, considering what I think they were looking at, I think this is probably a good hire. I think it's weird to say because he's from Nebraska, but I think he's probably in more of a comfort zone in Orlando than he was back in Lincoln, trying to restart something that has been really, you know, had kind of flatlined for a long time.
How much did Belichick lean on Saban at all on returning to college football?
You know, I'm sure he, you know, reached out to him, because obviously they go way back and they coach together with the Browns. The thing I would be, you know, I you know, when you asked me that, I'm like, I don't know how much you would have like really leaned on him from this standpoint. A year ago, Nick Saban left.
Yep.
And a big part of his decision was he had done like 40 some exit interviews and just kind of cringed at what he was hearing. And in this mentality coming from portal and NIL. So that's not gone away. It's only gotten more further entrenched. And so if that drove Nick Saban away, and Nick Saban's in his 70s and he had lived it, I mean, I don't know how Bill Belichick's going to deal with it for very long. My hunch is, you know, and I wrote this in a column on The Athletic this morning, I think he will have success, you know, early, but I don't think he's going to be able to tolerate some of the stuff that, you know, talking to a lot of football coaches in college, that drives them up a wall. I just don't think he's going to want to deal with it.
Bruce, do you think that he will retread some guys like Joe Judge? I mean, Freddie Kitchens coached with him already, and he's already there, and he's going to stay. But the Joe Judges of the world, I don't know if you're going to get, you know, Matt Patricia and Josh McDaniels down there, or does he go get elite college coaches that he likes outside of maybe his son Steve or people like that?
I think it'll be some of the names. I agree with you. I think Joe Judge will be back there. He's an analyst for Lane Kiffin now. He spent 3 years on Nick Saban's staff. Of the Belichick tree, he's one of the guys who has the most college experience. And like, honestly, right now he's in it in Oxford. So I would not be surprised to see him there. I would not be surprised to see his son Steve, who was obviously the Washington defense coordinator, you know, at UW. I would not be surprised to see him coming. I think he may bring 1 or 2 assistants from there that work with him on the defensive side of the ball. You know what? I imagine he's going to have, because he already just hired, as you said, he has Freddie Kitchens. He also hired Mike Lombardi, who he's known for probably 35 years, to be the GM. I think he's going to have a pretty strong core of guys who have worked with him, because, you know, all coaches are kind of creatures of habit. Him in his 70s, out of his comfort zone, which he's going to be, I don't think he's just going to have all of a sudden a lot of guys that he's not very familiar with. I mean, I think there'll be a strong balance, a strong mix of guys that know how he wants things done.
You know, he is the greatest NFL coach of all time. That could always be debated with Lombardi and Landry and many others, Chuck Noll, etc. It is still hard for me to imagine, though, that he leaves so close to Don Shula's all-time wins and loss record. But he's always been kind of a unique dude, right? Do you feel like he just got fed up with the wait and was frustrated with the process of getting the job back in the NFL?
Yeah, the one person I talked to who's pretty close to him and has had a lot of conversations with him over the last couple of weeks said he just didn't think he was going to get a job in this cycle. I mean, remember, there was 8 openings last year. He only got 1 interview with the Falcons. And that job went to Raheem Morris. So now a year later, I don't know if he's just, had to feel the landscape and go, I'm not going to get what I want. And so he felt like, what, if I'm ever going to do this, do it now at 72. I mean, what is interesting, and I had somebody who actually was a former Belichick assistant, noted this and pointed it out. It was like, he has basically a 1-year situation where his buyout drops quite a bit after the first year. So there's, it goes from like $10 million to $1 million. And the thinking being, well, maybe if there's something out there that he's really interested in and is interested in him, a year from now he could get it. And while that's true, but he'd also be 74 years old by the time that NFL season starts. I don't know how many, teams are going to say, hey, we wouldn't have, he's been out for 3 years and now all of a sudden we want him. But, stranger things have happened, and him taking a job in North Carolina would absolutely qualify as stranger to me.
Is there any chance, and I ask you this, Bruce, only because we've seen boxers at the end of their career, they keep coming back. Do you feel like there's any way at all this ends badly and this doesn't work?
Yeah, I think there's definitely that. I mean, I don't think he's going to go there and go 3-9.
Right,
I mean, as you guys know, like, North Carolina has never been bad. They just haven't been that good. Like, they've had 2 seasons since Mac left to go to Austin, whatever that was, basically 30 years ago, where they have finished in the top 25. But they had 8 seasons where they've won at least 8 games. Butch Davis was pretty good there. Mac was pretty good. I mean, they're going to a bowl game and they still fired him. It's not like, my point is, it's not like it's the team that the program Dion took over where they were a 1-win team. I think let's be honest, he's going into the ACC, not the SEC. Like, we just saw SMU go in there from the AAC and almost win the league and go to the playoffs. We saw Manny Diaz take over Duke and win 9 games. We saw Fran Brown, who'd never been a coordinator anywhere, become the head coach at Syracuse and win 9 games. This is not like a meat grinder. I mean, I think I'll be surprised if he doesn't win at least 8 games next year, because I think he's that good of a coach, and everybody I talk to thinks he's that brilliant. And I could see him getting him in the top 25, but I just don't see him dealing with all the external stuff about dealing with agents, and that, not the agents like that he would be dealing with in the NFL. These are different kinds of agents. These are like unlicensed mostly, and I just feel like it's way unregulated. And I think that lack of structure and the chaos that surrounds college football now, I think that ultimately will drive him away from it.
Bruce, the North Carolina, just as a football program, you mentioned they've been average, and that's been their curse, is they're woefully average. They're elite basketball. They're elite. Like, you go through all their athletic department, there's not really a lot of pockmarks on it, of accomplishment, but they're kind of the flagship school of the ACC, and nobody in that conference has underachieved in football, maybe more than them, given the fact that they've kind of run the show for a long time in that conference. Is part of this just being fed up with 40 years of blah?
I think there was a weird power dynamic that was at play here, where it didn't seem like the AD wanted him, probably wanted somebody else to be the next head coach, but the regent really wanted Bill Belichick in there. I'm sure that drove it, because they went from like $5 million a year to $10 million a year. That's not easy to do, in college athletics to ramp it up like that. So clearly there was like, it's Bill Belichick. I don't think they were doing that if whoever the coach, and you can say, pick the coach, whether it's a guy who was very well regarded, but like, for them to go throw $10 million at somebody, that North Carolina wasn't even thinking about about anything like that. But in this case, it's Bill Belichick. They swung for the fences, and they got their coach. And, look, it's just like with Boulder, Colorado. Deion made a program that nobody really cared about or was interested in, kind of must-see TV as a rating. So I think Bill Belichick will do something similar in Chapel Hill.
Have you, and I know you have an array of what we used to call a Rolodex, your contacts in your phone. You talked about the text you received that kind of gave you a little bit of a heads up. What are other coaches saying to you about this move? What is kind of the overall general feedback on this move from those you have texted you, et cetera?
A bunch of them have been pretty, I think they have been not just diplomatic, but I think they have a lot of respect for Belichick. Belichick, from the guys I heard from, whether they coached for him or have been around him, have a ton of respect for him. Obviously, I know Dave Aranda's, local and near for you guys. Like, he's one of like a handful of guys I know who was fortunate enough to spend a lot of time around Bill Belichick and, pick his brain. And everything I'd heard was Belichick would always download those college coaches who would visit him about what they knew and was very curious and everything. And I think he's one of these guys that I think a lot of football coaches, especially the X and O guys, have an incredible amount of admiration and respect for, and I think they know how brilliant he is on some of those things. I don't get the sense, and it's still pretty new, obviously, but I don't get the sense, like, when Deion got to Boulder, I think there was a lot of skepticism because he was talking about doing things that were probably rubbing some people the wrong way, or it was just kind of really brash. I think because of who Belichick was in the coaching world, football coaches probably are going to be a lot more deferential, and that's the word I would use. I meant to say diplomatic. I use diplomatic, but I think they're just very deferential because of he's Bill Belichick. He's a guy that whether they like the Patriots or not, and these are football coaches, not like football, like just fans and sports bars, but I think they have so much admiration and respect for him as a coach that I think that he's just looked at differently.
Last thing, Bruce, from me, and then go ahead, Paul. You ask first.
I do need to ask. Dabo Swinney is reportedly going to host a portal player. Is he okay? Did something happen, or is this just inevitable because after 4 years of not doing it, you're eventually going to hit a spot on the roster where you've got to pull that club out of the bag?
Yeah, I thought he would have hit that spot a long time. Like those programs who like it just happens. Either you get hit by injuries in a spot, or the recruiting class, you have a bunch of holes, and it's like, how do we replenish the receiver room or the DB room or whatever it is? I'm just surprised he had held out this long. So that's why it's kind of newsworthy that he's kind of dipping his toe in it. But look, I mean, credit to Dabo here. Like, I think after they got blown out by Georgia in the opener, I think a lot of people, myself included, were like, I don't think Dabo is going to. We've had this conversation on our podcast, The Audible, more than a time or two about like, do you think Dabo ever wins another national title? I mean, very few guys, as you know, who are active now have national title rings. He's got 2. Kirby Smart has 2. I don't think he's winning one this year, but the fact that they're in the playoff, even if it is winning the ACC, is noteworthy, and so I think, like he's earned the right to do things how he sees fit because he's done an amazing job by and large over a long period of time at Clemson. And it wouldn't surprise me if they made some noise in the playoff because he's got Cade Klubnik playing well, and they definitely have some talent. So, I feel like there's a lot of us who kind of like shrug their shoulders at Dabo because he's done things a lot differently, but he's obviously been a great coach for Clemson.
I'm still looking. Bruce, first of all, thanks for your time. The story in The Athletic, there's no reason Belichick can't have success at UNC. Just don't expect him to last long. Is that first 18 to 22-year-old that gives him an attitude. Now, NFL athletes, because of agents and all that, they could be grumpy. Look at the guy from San Francisco walking off the field last night. But I just wonder that first one, and he's going to go, what the hell am I doing here? I just, because that's going to happen in any office, any profession, but I look forward to that first time when some college kid wants to not give him an immediate answer on whether or not he's going to come play at North Carolina.
Yeah, look, I mean, he coached a lot of people who were like knuckleheads or whatever you want to describe it, a bunch of guys who people thought couldn't get right. And some of them did when they were in New England. Now, some of them didn't, and I think that is only there's going to be a bunch of them. And I think, all that, like Nick Saban, for all his success, he definitely had some of those players who just, you get penalized by talent, you're going to give it a chance, and then it's just not going to work, and I think you're not going to bat 1,000 in this day and age because the internet is what it is. We'll probably hear about these things pretty fast, and so just hopefully there's not going to be those, I don't think there will be, but like the Brian Kelly dancing on the podium with the recruit, I don't think those.
No, I don't think so. Who knows? Hey, man, thank you as always, Bruce. Whenever we get you, it's special. Thanks for your time. Enjoy as the playoffs begin
Happy
next
holidays,
week.
guys. Happy
you.
holidays. Thanks for
Thank you. Bruce Feldman, theathletic.com with us on 365 Sports. The 5 o'clock hour is just around the corner. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. That first time a kid starts to give him attitude about a scholarship or whatever. And he might handle it really, really better than we think, and there's a reason why. Yeah, he turned Tom Brady from the 199th pick in the draft into a 6-time Super Bowl champion. Now, Brady also helped Belichick win 6 Super Bowls, but then Brady won a Super Bowl without him in Tampa, remember, that year during the COVID Super Bowl. Golly, it's an amazing story. Nothing ever surprises me anymore. Nothing. All right, when we come back, the 5 o'clock hour, Paul's Top 5, and about an hour from now, we'll hear from Josh Neighbors, and we'll also look at the highest-rated games throughout the college football season. Obviously, some of these will be broken because of the college football playoffs and the importance of win or go home. That and more, 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, their lot is full. If you are a business owner and you're wanting to replace or maybe change out the fleet of cars or trucks or even box cars or vans that you have, they have those available for you. And then, of course, they have the mother load of the Wagoneer. This is such a beautiful SUV. I drove one time. I can't remember what trip I was on. It might have been back in June of last year, of this year. But these Wagoneer SUVs are special. The Wagoneer Series 3 and the Grand Wagoneer Series 3, $15,000 right now off MSRP or 3.9% financing for 72 months at Allen Samuels. They also have 0.9% for 72 months, continuing on the 2024 Ram 1500. Sold down their inventory and sold only a few left, and they still have that Black Widow Ram 1500 crew cab awaiting for you with 37-inch wheels, a true beast of a truck. Allen Samuels with the Jeep Grand Cherokee. Paul and I have run around in one of those over the last couple of 2 or 3 weeks because our cars are having some work and repair done. It's what I drove as a rental car one time when I went to Florida. It is spacious and it drives incredibly well. Ted Teague is the general manager and CEO. David Gray, the manager of new car sales, and so much more. Great staff of people. It's Allen Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 and east of 84 in Waco.
If you want quality and personalized service for all your air conditioning and heating needs, call Tradesman Services. They're a family-owned and operated company that has served Texans for over 30 years. Tradesman offers maintenance plans starting at just $12 per month and a free service call for all new customers. They're also experts in geothermal design, installation, and service. Visit them online at coolingwaco.com.
Get ready, Baylor fans. The ultimate game weekend experience experience awaits you at the Baylor Club. Kick off your weekend with our Friday Night Live pep rally. With live entertainment and special appearances from the Baylor Spirit Squad, it's the perfect way to start your game weekend with a roar. On Saturdays, don't miss our Knox Hall tailgate. Enjoy delicious food, ice-cold drinks, and great company as you gear up for the big game. And after the weekend's excitement, wrap it all up with our famous Bear brunches on Sundays. Don't wait. Make your game weekends legendary with the Baylor Club membership today.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
We're going to get back to the Big 12 bowl games. We still have a handful of them to discuss. Here are the highest rated college football games from the 2024 season through the conference championship, and there's a good chance that you will see a lot of these 10 million plus. Georgia, Texas, 1 and 2. Look at those numbers, 16 million and 13 million.
You know, I don't care what Greg Sankey says. I don't see a common denominator here. I just see football. I don't see, I'm like one of those people who says, like, I don't see races. I don't see conferences.
Let me tell you something.
I just see football.
Exactly right. And then look at them. This is evidence.
I'm just
Michigan, Ohio State, 12 million. It spiked to 29 million when they had planted the flag. Georgia, 3 of the top 4 games. Alabama, that was a crazy game. I sat there stunned and dumbfounded when it was like 28-0 or whatever. Georgia stormed back, and then in one play, Milroe hit Williams for the long touchdown to get the lead back.
I would love to say, like, see, there's an ACC or Big 12 game in there.
You're not going to see one.
And there's a couple of ACC and an independent team in there, but
you're not going to see one.
SEC and Big 10 all the way down.
Again, there are some games that are better than others based on the time, but Michigan, Ohio State could play at 4 a.m., and they're going to get 12 million. Oregon, Penn State, 6 o'clock start, 10 million. 2 more above 10 million, Alabama, Tennessee, and then Tennessee against Georgia. So Georgia is in 4 of the top 7 rated games. Texas twice, Alabama twice, and Georgia, Tennessee twice, and in Georgia 4 different times.
Yeah, and I want to give credit to On 3's Nick Schultz, who actually broke this down to who was the most watched throughout the entire year. But, yeah, I mean, that is a graphic that I think if you are the SEC or the Big 10, you just print this out and you just go put this in front of the TV network and just go, here. look at all of our games. These are the top 20 for the entire year. Like, here's our games. Here's why we deserve immense amounts of money, and they're already getting that. But I think that stuff like this will only just further strengthen their arguments. But do y'all want to hear the top 10 most watched or whereabouts of the most watched teams based on the ratings throughout the year?
Yeah, we just did all the ones that were 10 million and above, and you saw the common denominators: Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, Texas. And then, of course, Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a lot of the usual suspects, a lot of those teams that you mentioned there. And so, yeah, they have massive fan bases, and they're good as well, and that certainly helps propel some of these ratings. But I'm just looking at this and marveling at the fact that Georgia, Texas, this big crown jewel, part 1 and part 2, is that's like Bengals versus Seahawks on a noon kickoff on Sunday on Fox. They spit out 16. I don't know if it's exactly 16 every time, but 12 million's nothing. That's just the NFL strength right there. But no, Big Ten, SEC dominate this, and there's no challenging that based on this graphic outside of the Georgia Tech or the Notre Dame appearances. But again, who are they playing? They're playing those same teams as you pointed out. But the top 10 most watched.
There's just between 17 and 18 million is the average, or is the normal average number in the NFL.
Yeah. And so here's the thing that I wonder with the Super League. I know that everybody has different opinions on that. I definitely think there's probably a segment of power brokers that want that. I bet there's probably people in private equity that would love that. I bet there's networks that would like that as well. But my only thing is how many more games are you really going to get outside of what you already get that are going to get you bonkers ratings? I mean, if Georgia, Texas is tapping out at 16 million, do you see what I'm saying here? How many matchups can you put together?
It's not an endless pool.
Right.
So, we take these 20. Put that up again, Garrett. Craig makes a great point. You take these games and you develop a Super League. How much is it really going to change?
Not really at all.
Yeah.
I don't think at all.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I think that's what Joe Castiglione.
But maybe there's going to be 20 or 30 games at 6 million and above rather than 20. Yeah.
Yeah, but Joe Castiglione said this week when they asked him about it, he's like, I think we already kind of have it. How much different can you make this? There's no look, if you're at 16 million and you've got the two of the biggest names, and you look on this list, there's 8 teams on it. There's not a lot. So even there's people who think they have brands that don't, that just aren't compared to these, and so you're not going anywhere with that.
Yeah.
The average I'm sorry, Craig. There are streamed games in the NFL that are getting 13 and 14 million viewers.
Yeah.
Right. That's what we were saying.
Stream. Yeah.
That's what we were saying is they're just random ass game on the NFL is getting the same amount as the top college football game over the entire year. So
and part of that is so if you're an Oklahoma fan, you're a Nebraska fan, and Garrett's an LSU fan, all three of you are Washington fans. So that's fan bases that come together in the NFL.
Yeah.
So it's a lot. You're never going to get those numbers because just as in my fandom as a Cowboy fan, there's, everybody under the sun, right?
Yeah.
So, but that doesn't mean we're all watching the Cowboys game for sure, but we're not all watching the same college games.
Yeah, I don't think you're developing new fans by suddenly trimming out a bunch of teams. So that's why I am leaning on the other side of the Super League in the way that I think of a Super League and most other people think of a Super League. It's not just SEC and Big Ten, that's a Super League. No. You cut some of the fat if you want to make that a true Super League in my definition of it. But, so you had Georgia, Texas play twice. What's the third time going to be 25 million and be better than NFL games?
If it was for the national championship, it would be bumped up to probably 20.
Sure, but that's the national championship game, So, anyways, it's interesting to look at. There's definitely two leagues that are ruling the roost and controlling the TV ratings. There's no doubt about that. That's why they get the big money. But in terms of the most watched programs, again, I give credit to, I want to get this right, Nick Schultz, I believe, of On3. Yes, Nick Schultz of On3. So the top 10 most watched programs from this past year using the ratings was Florida, averaged 4.3 million viewers. You had Kentucky at 4.5 million viewers, which had a big matchup against Texas, and that was a big deal, obviously, to have that on the schedule. Got you a pretty high number, but you had that one. You also had, LSU, 4.8 million. They had the big USC game there at the beginning. They also played Alabama, played Oklahoma there at the end, so they averaged just under 5, as did Texas A&M. At number 7, 4.9 million. Had the big Notre Dame game. Obviously, the Texas game as well. That Texas game, 9.5 million. Was that more or less than you figured that game would be with all the build-up? Less, yeah, me too. Yeah. Me too. I think that I did wonder towards the end of whether people outside of Texas really cared. as much as people in Texas, and clearly not, but I just wondered how much they cared about it.
It's still right outside. It's still like a number 10 or so. 10
right,
or 11.
but
it's a really good point. That game had so much buildup. But you know where the buildup was? In Goldthwait or Heiko.
Right.
Or in Lubbock, even though
it wasn't in New York City.
In Tyler,
I do think that the SEC needs to set their goals on some of their rivalries like that now that they have this new league to combat the game.
But let's also be honest. It's the first time in a long time, but a lot of people don't even – I hate to say it because it's a great rivalry, but A&M has been good at times. Texas will have a logo no matter what. Even when they were struggling, they were a good draw. But, yeah, that game needs to be – they need to figure out a way to make that something even more special if that's possible with the build-up to it.
Well, I mean, they had a championship riding on the line, a championship bid.
Did,
I mean, I don't think you couldn't have written it better other than it being for a playoff spot, which guess what? It also was that. I mean, so unless outside of it being win or go home, but it really was that.
And it was a primetime game, too.
Yeah, you couldn't have really done anything. It all fell your way. But anyways, Texas A&M, 7th most watched team, a little less than 5 million, just over 5 at 5.2. You had Michigan. Of course, they played Texas earlier in the year, and they played Ohio State. Those are two massive games.
Those two games combined were 22 million.
Yeah, those two massive games with massive ratings. So Michigan at 5.2. Tennessee, number 5, 5.4 million. Had Alabama, Georgia on the schedule. That ought to be a really big game with them and Ohio State. That's going to be insanity. So, yeah, that one ought to be interesting to see what they are. Number 4, Texas, 6.4. Obviously, you played Michigan, you played Georgia, you played Oklahoma. You played the SEC championship game, part 2 with Georgia. So you had 4 pretty monster games right there. Alabama, 6.6. You had Tennessee, LSU, a part of that schedule. So they remain popular post-Saban. Ohio State, 6.8 with the big Michigan game at 12.3. You also had Oregon in that mix as well.
And the Indiana game drew 9 million.
So the Indiana one was kind of the one you wouldn't have expected prior to the season, but that one threw up that average to give them the second most. And then that leaves at number 1, the most watched team in America this past season, the Georgia Bulldogs, 8.6 million. The standard, I guess, average rating coming out of that most watched team. You had 2 matchups with Texas. Both of those had monster numbers, including the SEC championship, which had about 3 million more than the regular season matchup did. But those 2 games really drove home Georgia's top ratings bids there. So, yeah, Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, Texas, Tennessee, those are your top 5 most watched programs this year.
Georgia, combined with just the 2 games with Texas and Alabama, was 41.8 million viewers.
Oh, yeah, I should have said Alabama.
Alabama was the 4th watch game, just below Michigan and also Ohio State.
And you saw that on that list. Jeez. You see Georgia.
And Tennessee was the top 7 game.
Yeah.
Golly. Well,
just interesting to look at.
But nobody believes in Georgia, Kirby.
Right.
No one gives you a chance. Those are bangers. Isn't that what I call them? Those are some bangers. And, well, I mean, there's the evidence. The only team in that entire list that Garrett has that is outside of the SEC or the Big Ten would be Georgia Tech in the game with Georgia and Notre Dame right below that with the opening game against Texas A&M. Everybody else on that list is connected to the Big Ten or the SEC.
Oh, and USC.
Well,
they're Big Ten. My bad. Hey, I'm living in 2023 still.
I was corrected 5 times this week, and for the first 4.5 times I deserved it. But, yeah, Georgia Tech, and that was just a classic game with 8 overtimes.
Well, it had nothing to do with Georgia Tech. I mean,
I will fight you.
No. I'm just saying that the ratings had nothing to do with Georgia Tech being in that game. Clearly, it was Georgia being in that game. It could have been Georgia versus anybody. It would have gotten ratings because they're the number 1 team.
Yeah, and it turned out to be a hell of a game, and that I'm sure brought a lot of viewers there at the end.
I'm not knocking Georgia Tech. I'm just saying that it was a great game, but they could have been Georgia versus anybody else. They could have been playing Syracuse. It still would have gotten a similar number.
You don't know because that's Georgia and Georgia Tech's the evidence they played. They didn't play Florida State.
Just go along with this point, please.
Had nothing to do with anything. It could have been Georgia and Florida State, same number. It doesn't matter.
I wonder
the point is, he just gave you the numbers. Georgia's the number 1 team. They're the fucking Seinfeld of this. I'm sorry, I finally did it. But
my God.
Yeah.
What in the world?
I'm sorry. So
no, my other thing is I wonder where that game may have peaked. Was it like to the end of the fourth quarter? Was it the eighth overtime? Everyone fall asleep or what? In that overall number, yeah, you guys are just awful. Absolutely awful. All right, let's see. 5:13, Josh Neighbors. Let's go back to the Big 12 and the remaining 3 bowl games that are left. We start with the Isleta New Mexico Bowl. TCU and Louisiana, who, by the way, their kicker was named the Lou Groza Award winner last night. Almendares.
Good for him.
Saturday afternoon in Albuquerque. TCU and Louisiana. Thoughts?
Louisiana, I don't know if they I don't know what their quarterback situation is going to be in this one, but I do know they just got Walker Howard in the portal. He's not going to play in the game. I like this one for TCU to try to get something going for the end of the year. Albuquerque's a weird place, man. It's very pretty, but it's a very strange place. I don't know how much fun they're going to have there, but pretty good game. I don't know if TCU fans are excited about it, but there's a point, just a year ago they weren't in one of these games, so they should be excited.
I mean, the runner-up Sun Bowl championship, got to play Marshall for that title and lost pretty lopsided fashion. But, yeah, I guess don't let this game come down to the kicker, that's for sure, based on the awards last night. And outside of that, who are we kidding? TCU don't care about this game. TCU don't give a damn about this game. Louisiana's 10-3. It'll be a respectable opponent, but I just don't see any way Frogs fans, and I haven't seen any evidence that any of them are excited about this one, with all due respect. So I guess don't go in there thinking you're just going to roll over Louisiana, because you could find yourself on the end of an embarrassing bowl loss that you weren't expecting. But, yeah, I just don't think there's a whole lot of excitement for this one, and I think Frogs fans would rather have been maybe some other places than Albuquerque against Louisiana in the New Mexico Bowl. But I think the big story with TCU is their very weird and quiet athletic director situation.
Yep.
I don't know why that's as quiet as it is, but Jeremiah Donati taking off and leaving for one of the Power 2 leagues, like a lot of athletic directors you're kind of seeing make those moves, and he's a Chris Del Conte disciple. Jeremiah Donati is, which I actually read, that goes back to his father. Jeremiah Donati's father helped out Chris Del Conte at the beginning of his career, and I didn't realize that connection between the two. That they went all the way to TCU and all of that, but yeah, Donati is gone. I actually think it's a pretty big deal, and then their search just continues, I guess. But, that game, there's not a lot to get excited about with that one.
Texas Bowl. Kinder's Texas Bowl. What's Kinder's?
It's like a chocolate candy or something.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I asked that question, and somebody brought that up to me. Baylor and LSU.
Italian candy.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know why it doesn't have a vowel in it.
I didn't know you had countries attached to candy.
Listen, Hershey's is American. Okay.
American.
Yeah.
All right.
Nestle
Baylor,
American, but
Baylor
Kinder's.
LSU. Of course, it's a 2:30 kickoff for us. We'll be covering the game. Get done about 6:30. Post game, get home back to Waco about midnight or so. 2:30. Baylor and LSU in the Kinder's Texas Bowl.
It's German. I'm sorry. I just know it's very popular in Italy. So yeah, my bad. My bad on that one. So
see what happens when you cuss?
It does. It throws the whole thing off the rails.
What about it? I think Baylor's got to be thrilled to be in the game. Got a lot of momentum. Playing LSU, not sure exactly about all of their parts available, but LSU fans going to Houston's not hard to do. I still think they'll end up being very much involved in this game.
Yeah, I think Garrett is panicked about this in every kind of different way.
A little bit.
Because there's going to be, especially offensive linemen not playing in this game, which might lead to Garrett Nussmeier, he could have a sprained shoulder, or something like that, or decide instead of you don't want to risk it. we'll see, who's available for LSU and what's going on at this point in the year. But Baylor, outside of the couple guys that are in the transfer portal, is going to be as full strength as they can be outside of, transfer portal guys and guys out for the season with injury. They're going to be loaded for bear and ready to go and rolling on trying to get that 9th win.
Yeah, nobody at the transfer portal really matters that they've lost, so I don't think that's a big deal. But if anybody else were to get in there between now and then, maybe that could change things. But, yeah, I don't think they've really changed at all. LSU, on the other hand, I don't know at this point how full that portal is, but I know it was getting to be a long list earlier this week. I know some of those guys aren't necessarily contributors either, but, I mean, let's face it, LSU I don't think is really fired up for this game. Baylor, though, I think what I said earlier in this week applies of I don't give a damn what LSU thinks. You got a chance to go beat LSU, full strength or not, and go get a big bowl win and end the season on a high note and take this thing into the offseason with some momentum. I think this is a great opportunity. The Texas Bowl is a really good bowl. Obviously, you should have some pretty good fans there. They don't have to travel far. And an interesting opponent, regardless of whether they have their full capabilities or not. And if Nussmeier's playing, well, then, hey, that's one of their best players, if not the best player that's suiting up for them. So it's not as though it's all just like scabs out there for the Tigers and Brian Kelly. I think Aranda would love to beat LSU, even if he's not a real prideful guy that worries about those types of things. I would think even if he doesn't feel that strongly about it, that if he were to go and do it, he'd probably realize, like, oh, that feels pretty good. And he likes to win, so does everybody else. I think there's a great opportunity to get a notable win and have that in the record books for forever. So, yeah, I think Baylor will be ready to go, and we'll see on LSU.
By the way, while we're here, official on DeQuan Finn. He's in the portal, according to Pete Nakos. Official. Yep.
Okay, I figured that. I mean, he wasn't going to play here next year, and so that was writing on the wall when Sawyer Robertson became the guy that he became. And DeQuan Finn, what a gig. I don't know how much he made. I know it had to be at least six figures. At least six. I'm being
what I learned from the beginning, it was probably somewhere, and how it worked out, too, was that Baylor was interested in him pretty quickly. He makes a trip. They put up a number, and they said you have like 24 hours or so to say yes or no, and if you go past that number, it drops. And I think it might have dropped. I know his agent, he's a great dude, but I want to say somewhere in the 300,000 or 400,000 range.
Yeah, it's just interesting that there was such a big to-do about him and a lot of money thrown his way, and it all amounted to a entire spring where he didn't really separate from Sawyer Robertson, that it carried over into summer and then wins the job and holds on to it for 2 games and then gets the injury, and Sawyer Robertson becomes the next maybe the best quarterback in the Big 12 over the last 10 games. So just who would have predicted that? You might have thought Sawyer Robertson should have won the job, but I don't think you'd have said, hey, Baylor's going to go 8-4, and DeQuan Finn's going to have absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with it.
Yeah, and I want to say he obviously, it didn't work out. He's a great kid.
Yeah, I'm not knocking him.
Great
I'm just
kid.
saying.
He did what anyone else would have done when you have that opportunity. And I thought that maybe it would work out. It did not. I wish him the best. It all kind of fell apart in that game against Utah. Remember? Yeah. The strip sack fumble, and then after that, it went downhill after that.
But I don't feel too sorry for him because he didn't have to do a whole lot and earned a whole lot of money by just having a quarterback competition and playing 2 games. So, I mean, good for him, and he'll still have another opportunity now. So
to either
make more,
to be a starter or to be, a backup who, And look, there's schools that fit what he does. He threw a lot of picks at Toledo, but he was the MAC MVP for a reason. He's got skills. He's very fast. He's athletic. He can help somebody. And he's going to have some time to make a well-reasoned choice.
So there you go with that. Again, Baylor, LSU, and then the DeQuan Finn news is now officially official, or as somebody used to say, exclusive.
No, my sources have confirmed the report of the report of the report so that I can take some credit for this. Yes.
I love it when people put up on their Twitter feed something, they take an image off of somebody else's feed, but they don't credit the person who had the information. That's why I'm glad you mentioned who did the numbers.
They retweet it, and then they put confirmed as if I called them, and they're like, okay, look.
It wasn't before, but now that I called, now it's official.
In a secondary tweet or whatever you want to call it, first reported by Emery Winter.
Yeah.
All right, Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. This is a big boy. It's Arizona State, the Sun Devils, waiting for the winner between Texas and Clemson. It will be a noon kickoff on Wednesday, January 1st, New Year's Day.
I'm fired up for Arizona State in this one. I think it'll be, Arizona State. Who are we waiting for on this one? The Peach Bowl. We didn't even know who they're playing.
Clemson or Texas?
Yeah. So, but we don't know, so I can't really talk about it.
No. But the fact that that's there, they're going to play noon. It's hard for me still to fathom Arizona State, and what an incredible run for Kenny Dillingham.
If Clemson can win against Texas, Arizona State can really take it to them, because I don't think they match up really great against them. But I mean, who knows? That Clemson and Texas game has to happen first for me to even pontificate about this.
Yeah, because for all we know, Quinn Ewers could get hurt in that game or something, and then Arch Manning's just,
Arch Manning runs for 3 touchdowns.
There's Texas fans that would probably prefer that outcome. But yeah, I just think we'll have time to talk about that when we find out who the winner is. But either way, I think that Texas would clearly be the favorite over Arizona State. I think Arizona State has clearly a better shot going up against a team like Clemson rather than Texas, especially given their strong suits. You're not going to – you can run Cam Scattaboo into that Texas defense over and over. I just don't think it's going to give the way a lot of other defenses have given these last few weeks. But I just think it's awesome they're in the game. I think it's awesome that they just turned every prediction on its head, and that Kenny Dillingham's this rising star that's only getting started in various ways. So it's an exciting time for them. They just need their fan base to rally and take full advantage, man. This is not something that's going to happen with regularity. You better – treat this as one of the most important moments in Arizona State football. If you were ever unsure about donating before, but you've thought about it, now you do it. If you were ever unsure about throwing your support another way, now you do it, because this little window's open now, and you don't know how long it's going to be open, but it's a pretty cool thing that it is open.
I'm going to ask you guys a question about Texas and about Quinn Ewers that was brought up to me by a Texas fan this week, and it hadn't occurred to me, but now I started thinking about it, and it's clearly this party line thing. The last couple of games watching Quinn Ewers, A&M, and against Georgia again, there was a lot of talk about this revolutionary ankle brace that he's got on that's allowing him to play. And I think Texas fans are kind of fed up with it's this revolutionary ankle brace that's allowing him to play. It's allowing him not to maybe hurt himself more, but it's not taking the pain in his ankle away.
What he did early on in the game at Texas A&M, there was a huge scramble with that ankle. Now, he's also shit the bed a couple of times. Yeah. We know that, especially in the fourth quarter.
Uncensored Friday or something like that?
Well, both of you guys are just
Stern show back in the 90s.
Well, he did. I was, at least of all the words used, mine was the most precious. But Quinn Ewers, when he needed to be good, was good. Yeah. There's that pick against Georgia did not hurt them. It almost killed them. But
he does an incredible job of when it seems like he's about to just get shoved completely to the side. Yeah. He takes his rest on the bench, and then he comes back and plays well enough. You're okay, that's why he's the starter.
But he's always been banged up his whole career. He's gone through that. But I think it's funny that I think it's one of those party line things from Texas, this ankle brace. It's essentially from space. You wouldn't believe this. And I think the fans of Texas are kind of tired of hearing about it, because they're well, all right, does it mean he's not hurt anymore, or does he can play through it? Because they have a legit controversy in a lot of their minds, because Arch Manning is not hurt at all and doesn't need an AI ankle brace to play the game. And I think a lot of them would be well, why don't you just put Arch in and not have to worry about this brace holding up or not?
So do you think they're playing him because he deserves to have the opportunity?
I think he's earned it.
I think he's their starting quarterback.
But that's and that's something I think Stark has said over and over again, but I do think the fans hear it and they're well,
the fans also want the true freshman who's never played before to start over
the
third-year junior with 50 games of experience who's actually pretty good but threw a pick that pissed him off. That's fans. They always want the backup quarterback, especially the backup quarterback's Arch Manning social media superstar and football legacy. So, you're going to have, especially with a massive fan base like that, people who want to see Arch. I do think if you were to take a poll of the fan base and get every Texas fan legitimate. I think Arch would win that poll, but I think there's some things that Quinn obviously does that keep him in that starting role, but I don't think any of it matters, because the great thing if you're a Texas fan is Arch is the starter next year. I don't care. I saw these rumblings about reportedly Quinn Ewers is thinking about coming back, and the word reportedly was used like 5 times in the same paragraph, so that's what makes me doubt it to begin with. But even if that were the case, like, it's Arch's team next year. They would riot if Quinn Ewers came back to Austin for another year. But for this year, maybe he's the best bet. But it's clear that, like, this is the end of the road. Quinn's got his time to maybe go take him to a championship. But after that, yeah, it's Arch time.
It will be interesting if they win a national championship. Paul will move to a different country. But if they win a national title and he says he wants to come back, just to have that will be a lot of fun to deal with. Before we go to Josh Neighbors, one more note about a game this weekend. Army-Navy game. It's a game that I get more emotional for that game than I do for any game other than Nebraska. It doesn't matter because of just the meaning of it, the pregame, the traditions. If you go to the Army-Navy or one of their feeds and see some of the videos from even 10, 12, 15, or 50 years ago, it is truly amazing. So that game coming up Saturday afternoon, can't wait for it. Both teams enter with winning records for the first time since 2017, and Army, of course, having that very special 11-1, Navy 8-3, and so ought to be a hell of a game.
Yeah,
CBS.
I think that's always a fun one to watch for a multitude of reasons. The uniforms, the history, just the real respectful but bad blood from both sides towards one another. But you're going to get a hell of a fight, and I think that'll be the case as well tomorrow. I think of all the players on either roster, Bryson Daly, probably the one that has been snubbed the most when it comes to some of the postseason stuff. He's had an incredible year for Army, a Texas guy. So I'm looking forward to watching him do his thing, because he's a hell of a lot of entertainment all wrapped up into a dual-threat quarterback that's mostly a running quarterback. But still, he gets the job done, and he's been very effective for Army. So, yeah, that'll be fun. All the pageantry is always very cool regardless of what the records are.
They have averaged. We gave you those ratings, the 16 million Georgia, Texas, but the 10 million. The average rating for two teams that are just like special to everybody in certain ways, 7.2 million since 2014. 7.2 million since 2014.
So I think we'd all assume Army wins this game just based off the season that both have had, but that would probably be, I'd say, 99% of people's would 99% of predictions would pick Army.
Yeah.
So I think that's where probably all of our heads are. It'll be a lot of fun, and you never know in a game like that. But that leaves us one prediction, and that is tomorrow night in New York City, the Heisman Trophy ceremony. We know all the awards that were announced last night. Travis Hunter cleaned up. Jeanty got some more hardware as well. But who do you think?
Well, there's some awards that Jeanty couldn't have won. But, yeah, some of the ones that were like head-to-head. Walter Camp Player of the Year was Travis Hunter. The Maxwell was Jeanty. I think Travis Hunter will win it. Mm-hmm. I can't reveal my vote, but I think he has more of a national push. And I've seen pictures of them in New York, and I think that Hunter will win it. I'm not going to say it's going to be close, because sometimes when you think that way, it's not. But I have a feeling that Hunter, because he does so much, and a lot of people see all of what he does, that he'll also have had more stage, more exposure.
If you flip
whoever
teams,
wins, I don't care. I think both of them have earned it.
If you flip teams, Ashton Jeanty probably wins the Heisman, right?
Yeah, probably.
Oh, no question. Yeah,
probably. And then, like, if you just grade him on the Charles Woodson scale of doing this both ways thing, Charles Woodson was a gimmick player on offense. Like, he played a lot. I mean, for, a defensive back on offense, but he didn't play all but 10 snaps a game, and some of those are just because his chin strap, like, oh, the clip fell off, we got to fix that, or his shoelace is untied. Like, Travis Hunter never comes off the field.
Travis Hunter's like a real, true dual threat.
Never comes off the field.
He won the Biletnikoff, which was good competition, but he was the banger. Nash had all the better stats across the board, but wasn't seen as much. He won the most versatile player with the Paul Hornung Award, and he also won the Lott Award, which is not the Thorpe Award. Jahdae Barron won that one. He's just special, and Jeanty is too. I've tried to use this as a comparison. Would you say, and maybe I'm missing a name or two, that Jeanty, as a group of five, and I hate that term, Marshall Faulk in 1992 was the runner-up to Gino Torretta. Now, that was during Miami's. They had already won a couple of national titles, maybe 3 or 4, and Faulk was still almost 400 votes, total votes, because you get 3, 2, and 1 behind Torretta, but ahead of Garrison Hurst. Is Jeanty, since that time, the most G5 opportunity player to win a Heisman Trophy, or am I forgetting somebody?
Probably. I mean, was McNair before or after? He was after that because he was up there from Alcorn State. I'm looking at to make this point. I mean, I'm not trying to knock Gino Torretta, but he wasn't. Part of the problem is he wasn't even the best offensive player on his own roster.
McNair finished a distant third to Rashawn Salam and Kajana Carter.
Yeah,
and Rashawn Salam, Colorado's only Heisman winner, could be getting some company. R.I.P. Rashawn Salam, by the way, and could be getting some company tomorrow.
But here's where Gino Torretta should have set off maybe some alarm bells about, hey, why are we only talking about offensive players? Because I'm just going to list off some dudes on this defense that played for that 92 Miami team.
Ed Reed?
No, 92.
Oh, 92. Okay. He's not that old.
The Rock, no, he wouldn't have won a Heisman, but he was on the team.
Too.
Jesse Armstead, Michael Barrow, and maybe the best defensive lineman of his generation in college and the pros, Warren freaking Sapp.
Yeah, I think the one that's unfortunately there's also an RIP tie in here as well. You can see the Rashawn Salam, Travis Hunter connection tomorrow. But the last guy, in terms of, I just looked at the finalists just to answer your question for time's sake. But the last guy who was a quote unquote, G5 quarterback would have been Colt Brennan, who finished third back in 2007. So that's the last guy that's been a part of at least the final three.
Mm-hmm.
No. Sorry. Jordan Lynch, Northern Illinois, back in 2013. He finished third behind Jameis Winston and A.J. McCarron. And I remember Jordan Lynch getting a lot of pub that year. NIU had a great year.
Yep.
He would have been there in 2013. But beyond that, it's mostly all just guys, top three that are in the power leagues. So,
yeah, I'm looking at all the winners, and you're right. But Marshall Faulk is one, and then you mentioned Jordan Lynch and Brennan at Hawaii.
As runners-up, yeah.
It's not a lot. Jeanty, I think, would be the minimum. If he doesn't win, it will be the minimum number 2 in the voting if Hunter does win the Heisman Trophy. Good luck to either one of them. They both seem to be incredibly good kids. Young men. All right, when we come back, Josh Neighbors on many things college football, and then also Paul Catalina's top 5 around the corner. If, again, you haven't hit the like button, we'd appreciate you do that. If you haven't subscribed, that'd be great, too. And this is 365 Sports. I have no idea which one I'm doing. Just throw it out there for me. IdealMRI.com. No notes. This is stuff from I'm a tree killer as far as paper. Is an amazing place. $497 is what it will cost for you to get an MRI. I've been in there. I've had other MRIs, and I got to tell you that one time I was like, God, I got to eat $1,600. Had an MRI. Ideal MRI was not open yet. Ideal MRI, which I've been endorsing now for about a decade, $497 or less when you get one, and their machine, state-of-the-art technology. The imaging machine is phenomenal. I have told you about the staff, 2 or 3 different people that have been there when I've had the MRIs, and the way they make me feel comfortable. I don't know about you, but I'm claustrophobic in certain ways over certain things more than others. But getting inside that tube, whoa, one thing I don't want to do is open my eyes. I don't want to know anything, put a wet towel over my face, whatever, and put on a pair of headsets and give me some rock and roll. And that's what they do. They kind of know what I like, and that's what they can do for you, in fact, if you feel like you might get spooked. But the bottom line, $497 is all it's going to cost, and they will file insurance and also get the images to you very quickly and in the portal for your doctor who requested and referred you to get the MRI. Shoulder, neck, back, knee, whatever it is, they get it done at Ideal MRI in the Central Texas Marketplace, just off I-35 in Waco.
Edward Jones financial advisors Ben Erlinson, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott understand these are difficult and changing times we live in, but they know how important your financial investments are to you. So is your financial advisor staying in touch with you and helping you navigate today's financial climate? Invest with Edward Jones financial advisors Ben Erlinson, Chuck Verno, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, who invest their time and experience back to you and your money. And like coaching athletes, investing money is about time, patience, and encouragement. Contact Ben Erlinson at 254-759-8533. Brad Wilson's location at 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, and Cam Heathcott in Conroe. Edward Jones Financial Advisors, Ben Erlinson, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, proud sponsors of 365 Sports. Edward Jones, making sense of investing, member SIPC.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance has protected fellow Texans with auto, home, health, and life insurance since 1952. With more than 260,000 square miles of land and 27 million people, that's a lot to cover. Whether you're wrangling cattle or wrangling kids, we're proud to protect Texans in all Texan ways of life.
Call Deborah Holder at 254-300-7202 to see if you qualify to save up to 40% on your auto insurance.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Gosh,
Now
neighbors!
here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
College Countdown joins us now. Josh, this has been the most interesting week between game. I mean, there's, let's say, week between games, championship games, then on our way to, ultimately what is Army, Navy, and then the playoff in a couple weeks. But there is some intrigue going on in the world of college football right now. We'll talk about the portal at the end because there's some neat things going on there. But Bill Belichick, Scott Frost, Rich Rodriguez, as out of nowhere a coach hiring cycle as I could have possibly told you, because I'm not a let's run it back guy or let's do that. Like, I'm saying, if I'm North Carolina, I'm hiring Jamie Chadwell. If I'm West Virginia, I'm hiring John Sumrall. If I'm UCF, I'm hiring like Jason Candle or someone like that can come in and do well there. Or, someone who recruits the crap out of Florida that I'm not, that's who I'm bringing in, a big time guy. And then West Virginia and UCF run it back to the good old days. And then North Carolina, look, it's a home run or a loud out with Bill Belichick. Like, there's not going to be any, like, in between is where they live anyway. So this is either going to revolutionize college athletics or it's going to be one of those things like, you remember when Bill Belichick was the coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels? Right. What are your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, so the Belichick one's really interesting because I think it's like, besides the fact it's him, it's just like every other hire. Like, we don't know if the NFL to college thing's going to work. If they put more money into it, they're already, I think I did the math yesterday. Mac consistently plus bowl games won like 7.3 games. So he's over 7 wins a season. So, like, the question was, are they going to be appreciably better? Well, if their roster, they put a lot more money into the roster, they should be. But like Belichick and company are probably going to take more of an approach where they evaluate players who are already in college, right? Because that's what the NFL guys do. They evaluate college players. So that's something that's more familiar with them. How much money they get, I don't know. But like, and he should be good at evaluating players. But also, this was a coach that recently had Matt Patricia calling offensive plays. So, it's a mixed bag, just like a lot of other coaches it can be. And I'm skeptical about it. I mean, if their roster is better, then they should win some more games. But I just, like, what is the point of this? Because, like, were people not investing under Mac Brown? Are you just trying to get investment? Is there something schematically that Bill Belichick? I think Josh Payton made a good point. He's like, is there something Bill Belichick's discovered schematically that we don't know about, or like, is this purely about big name recognition equals more money, plus in a portal era, this is a guy who's got a staff full of people that know how to identify talent. But his last 5 years of drafting were not good.
No.
So like from a talent identification standpoint, we always do. It's like, they drafted the safety from Duquesne in the first round, and guy ends up as an all-pro, but that's not been the case for them recently for Bill Belichick. So I don't like going from a 73-year-old to a 73-year-old. I'm not saying if you go 73, you got to flip and go 35, but grouchy guy who wanted to coach in the NFL, you're getting him because he's just kind of looking for a spot to land and didn't want to wait for the cycle to go and him miss out. So Carolina kind of ended up lucky with it, but I'm skeptical of it, but it's got it could work. It's got questions just like every other job.
Hey, well, again, we'll see. I'm not one of these people who's going to come out and say that this is not going to work. There's no, if anybody can figure it out, it's probably Bill Belichick, but he's going to have to change himself a little bit. His
decision making was bad at the end of his Patriots run. I mean, the drafting was bad, and the play calling was bad. So, that stuff exists out there.
Yeah, and if he brings a bunch of those Patriots retreads with him to call plays there on either side of the ball, then I think that tells you, the big thing I think for Belichick and his success is how do you blend the old with the new? So how do you go and hire some college coaches who are damn good college coaches and not just this is an NFL developmental program, so I'm going to bring in a bunch of NFL coaches. All right, well, sometimes guys can't do both. Now, there's tons of guys who can, but, are those the guys who are in your, little circle?
And he's got a lot of failed coaches in his, Patricia, Josh McDaniel,
Romeo
guys,
Crennel,
Romeo Crennel, and then, if you want to add, Jared
Charlie
Mayo,
Weiss.
Jared Mayo's not looking too great right now with the Pats as it is. I know they're going to be bad anyway, but these weren't a lot of high caliber, great names,
Okay. All right. In the Big 12, run it back was the theme with West Virginia and UCF, the two open jobs. Which coach makes a quicker impact and which coach makes a longer impact?
Rich Rodriguez is a better immediate impact, I think. The guy can flat out coach. He's been a good coach everywhere he's been, basically, besides Michigan. If you want to say 1.5, Arizona kind of went south, obviously, for other reasons. But man, Rich Rodriguez can flat out coach. And we saw it at Jacksonville State. We saw it at West Virginia the first time. Typically, if he gets guys to like this part of the country, it's where he kind of kills it. And, I know offense, it can be challenging because, it comes and goes and things get revolutionized when they keep changing. This is a guy that revolutionized modern offense. He really did. He was a huge part of that Chip Kelly spread generation. And his was, that spread option rushing attack, right? And that basically says, I'm going to empower my athletes to make decisions and be themselves. And, he's tough, hard-nosed, and held people accountable, but he's still, I think in terms of style of play, empowered his players. And I like guys like that. And so, this does not feel like a retread to me because we've seen guys do what Rich Rod's done. He just took that program from FCS to FBS, and they've been playing at a really high level. And guys like that get the call up to other jobs all the time. So it's a retread because Rich Rod's going back to a school he's been to, but in the sense of a natural coaching progression, it's pretty natural that he's back. And look, man, it's not in the Hugh Freeze way. Hugh Freeze got two, it was Liberty, and then was he somewhere else after Ole Miss? Was it just Liberty? I'm trying to think. Was it just Liberty?
It was just Liberty.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty cushy. That's an easy job. They've got more money than everybody else in their conference, and they've got a ton of really good resources. And so coaches do really, really an easy schedule, and coaches do very, very well there. I'm not saying, he didn't do a good job at all, but Jacksonville State you did not know about Jacksonville State, and now you do because of him and the way that they've played. So I think because he's kind of on this natural coaching progression, I like that hire a lot more. Scott Frost kind of going to have to figure it out a little bit again, I think, because UCF's in an odd spot where they feel like they should be better than they are, but they're not that good.
Scott Frost, like, I think one of the things, they are really fired up. I mean, they've got their donations have shot up this week.
That's why the ticket
request has done that. Like, he's made them excited, and I think he knows this. I don't know if the fans completely grasp this. This job has become different in the short 5 years since he's been gone. Like, it's become different. Rich Rodriguez, same thing, but when he left, the Big East was still a big-time conference. Like, like it was still relevant. So I guess it's a little bit different. I was not a fan of just either idea of bringing back somebody who's already been there. Like, I just wasn't my thing.
Why, yeah.
But I'm also like, I'm what Barney from How I Met Your Mother, new is always better. Like that's kind of my thing when it comes to coaches. Like, just try something new. Like, you've done this before. Okay. Scott Frost had the best season in school history. You want to recreate that. And let's see if that happens. I just wonder, how different is the job and how equipped that both these guys are going to be to deal with the different parts of this job now that they've not been in these kind of things for a little bit now.
But so I would ask you about the Rich Rodriguez part of it, because Scott Frost's been out, and that when coaches are out, it worries me because football changes fast.
Yeah.
Rich Rod has not been out, and what he's been doing in terms of scheme has worked. Now, has it worked at the super highest level? Like it worked before at a high level. Yes, but I think Rich Rod has this really long track record of being a really good coach. Mm-hmm. And he's had it at some different places, right? West Virginia. I don't know where Glenville State is. Got no idea, but he was good there, obviously. West Virginia to Arizona. And look, Arizona, I think he won 3 games second to last year, then 7 the year afterwards. They had a 10-win season there when he was there. And he had success. He had some serious success there. And then Jacksonville State, he had some serious success there. So if you're looking at Arizona, Mississippi, West Virginia, and Michigan's the one place where he didn't. But like, let's be honest, we just saw Wisconsin try to go air raid and it failed miserably. Mm-hmm. And so like there is a certain amount of like at this point, unless you're Ohio State or you're like one of the West Coast schools, like Illinois should not be running the spread. Michigan, you should not be running the spread. You just won a championship for the first time, and I forgot how long it was, whatever. But like, you did it because you were the better team between the tackles on both sides of the ball. And so like identity wise, like that wasn't going to work there. But West Virginia, they were at their best when they got athletic kids from Florida to come and play for them. And, I think the entire East Coast come and play for them, and he put them into positions to succeed. And whether it was Steve Slayton, Pat White, Noel Devine, all those guys, that stuff still worked though for him. And so that's why I like what he does, because what he's done has continued to work. It's not like he needs to innovate to have success. I mean, he's innovated his own offense some, but like, it's not like he needs a cultural shift of his own to get there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. All right, Josh, did they get the CFP right in your opinion? Yeah. Under the current, like, before we delve into the minutia of the rules that make less sense, did they get the 12 teams right?
So I asked this question last week on my show. I'm actually going to ask you, Paul, because I want to know your answer to this. If the mandate of the college football playoff, if the CFP head, God, whatever, whoever it is now, said to the committee, all right, your
Richard
job,
Clark,
pick me the best 12 teams, not this format is how we're doing it, whatever at large is. They said just give me 12. Do you think the rankings would look like they do now?
I think they might be slightly different, but here's the thing. Do I if you came down to it, and it really comes down to Alabama and SMU in this argument, right? And
I would say it comes down to
Alabama and Clemson, maybe.
To me, the big one was Miami against Alabama. Actually,
Miami against Alabama. Yeah. I think that we are letting the past history of the SEC cloud our judgment. I think this year, if you watch the SEC, there were not any great teams in it. There were not teams dominating each other, and that has happened in the past. Georgia, a couple years ago, 2022, Georgia ran through. They had one bad game against Missouri where, they essentially didn't wake up until the last 7 minutes of the game. And it wasn't a bad defensive game. It was an elite defensive game, like all of them were. It was just, Stetson Bennett might have had a little more fun the night before. I don't know. Maybe they varsity bluesed it up. I'm not sure what was going on, but they wound up winning the game because they needed to score like 10 points to do it, and they were like, all right, let me vomit for a second, and then I'll feel better. We'll puke and rally and go. That did not happen anywhere across the SEC this year.
No.
So the SEC is more akin to the Big 12. Now, do they have better offensive and defensive linemen currently? Yes. But their depth has been a chunk's been taken out of it. A huge chunk's been taken out of it.
And that's good news in my opinion. I think it's good news.
Yes. It's great
because news. I think the talent is much more spread out. I really do.
And the thing is, the talent, it is infinitely more spread out because you've got guys from SEC schools that were 4-star recruits that, sat for 2 years that are like, well, I just want to go somewhere where I can play. And they're skipping over the Big 12 and the ACC and the Big 10, and they're going to play at San Diego State because maybe they found out they're not P4 linemen, or that they know that oh, well, I'm going to transfer there. There's another left guard that's the same year as me. We're both going to do it. Well, I don't want that. I just want to go to San Diego State because I know I'm going to play. And so everything is different. And look, San Diego State will give me $85,000 and Maryland's going to give me $50,000. So I'm just going to go to San Diego State, live in a cooler place and start, it's like those things are all different. And I think people will see it because it is free agency. I mean, how many times have you on NFL free agency day when all these deals are made, looked at your phone and go, why the F would you go play for the Jaguars? And
then you see $60 million guaranteed, and you're like, I don't understand why you're going to
$60 million. Yeah, I'll live in crap-ass Jacksonville. I don't care. Duval, I'll do that. That is happening. That's going to happen here too.
That's exciting, though.
Exactly. So across the board, I just don't think that the gap is there. But
the problem is these conversations become so much more esoteric now, right? Because so if there's nobody clearly better than the other, right? So the Miami argument, I know Miami's defense sucks. I get that, but their offense has been a complete wagon this year. They lost 2 games. I know that their strength schedule we know wasn't amazing, whatever. But they lost 2 games, 2 good teams by a total of 9 points. This month, I watched Alabama get just absolutely steamrolled by Oklahoma, who we know is bad. So maybe Alabama's top end is better than Miami's, but their low end is a lot worse than Miami's. And here's the thing: good luck stopping Miami. Now, you get to score on them, but I know Miami's going to put a compelling game on the field, and they've got a star in Cam Ward. So if we're going to go the esoteric direction, and we're going to do things like take Florida State out of the playoff last year because the quarterback was hurt, I can be like, hey, they play close games, and they got a ton of offense, and I like their quarterback. Stick them in there. You know what I mean? Because if a talent's more spread out, and we're now fighting not between 4 and 5, but we're fighting between 11 and 12 or 12 and 13, it becomes a bit more of just a choose your own adventure, I think, as opposed to an actual criteria type deal.
Done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
There are hundreds of things that can affect our sleep, but what's affecting yours? Sleep Doctor's Home Sleep Test brings the precision of a sleep lab into the comfort of home to help you get answers and unlock a lifetime of great sleep. Start now at sleepdoctor.com/TV.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome in, Paul Catalina's Top 5 on your Friday. Coaches who need to crush the 2025 portal cycle. Transfer fits is getting harder and harder to keep up with as there's like 1,500 guys in the portal right now, and I could just go on forever. So let's talk about some of the coaches that need to do well. Number 5, Mario Cristobal. Look, he obviously crushed it in the portal this year, not only with Cam Ward, but several other players, but very weak on defense. That defense was not good. Cam Ward was worth all 10 wins that they had this year because, again, that defense wasn't good. Sans Cam Ward, they're a 6-6 team more than likely. But he's shown the ability to recruit. He's built up some young talent there. But how does he fill that quarterback position? Because that's one that he does not have a quarterback of the future on the roster. They're going to lose some of those offensive studs, especially the running backs that they have that are good, a couple of the wide receivers. So how does he, especially Xavier Restrepo, who is way better than he's given credit for nationally, that's a dude who is really, really good and has been great for them for a couple years. But how does he do this and avoid being this year's Florida State, where a dynamic, once-in-a-generation quarterback comes and helps you out for a little bit and then is gone? So Mario Cristobal needs to crush it, or they're back to square one really, really fast. Number 4, Lincoln Riley. USC is average. Do they go try to get another quarterback to upgrade over Jaden Maiava? Miller Moss already in the portal. How do you keep improving on that defense, which was better this year? How do you find people that fit your offense? How do you get back to being QB guru, Lincoln Riley? These are all questions that he needs to answer as he moves forward at USC, because right now, this is most of his life is yelling at people because he's frustrated. It's not going at USC like it was going at Oklahoma. So how does he make that happen in the new era, and how can he get back to being the guy who coached all these Heisman Trophy winners and first-round draft picks and Jalen Hurts, who was a stud? How does he get back to that point? That is a huge question, and he has to start doing it in the portal because they don't have much room for error. He's making a lot of money to be better than he has been at USC so far. Number 3, Mike Gundy. Now, he disagrees. He says that's not true. No, he really has to kill it in the portal, especially on offense. He has nothing coming back. I mean, when I say nothing coming back, all these guys are graduating and gone. You know, that's it. He's got to hit on quarterback. He's got to hit on some offensive linemen. He's got to hit on some playmakers. Gone. He's losing a lot of people. A lot. Defense wasn't good anyway. So Doug Meacham, Todd Grantham, Mike Gundy, things are not good in Stillwater right now. They're tense. I don't care if they say they worked it all out. It's tense. If he doesn't start playing and coaching better, they are going to have a problem again. These things don't end well. When you get in a stalemate over a contract because you're 3-9, it doesn't just go away. No matter how much history you have at a university, the boards change. The alumni changes. Things go. People move on. People die. Then some of your advocacy goes out the window very slowly. It happens to almost every coach everywhere. And Mike Gundy's been at Oklahoma State long enough to where some generations have passed now, and the new ones want to see results. Number 2, Mike Norvell. It's no secret how bad they were, 2-10. He's already got Thomas Castellanos, a very athletic quarterback, in the fold, but that means he also still needs to develop those young guys behind him. Luke Kromenhoek gone, but they have, signees, Kevin Sperry, others in the barrel to develop. How can Gus Malzahn and his staff help with that? We'll see. But he's got to get offensive linemen, defensive linemen, linebackers, wide receivers. The only 2 positions that they don't really need to worry about are running back and defensive back. Those are kind of stacked at FSU, surprisingly enough. But anything that's in front of all those people is a problem, and they have to do that. And if he doesn't roll out a big, big upgrade in 2025, then it's not going to matter how much they have to buy him out for. They'll make a settlement and send him out the door and start from square one again, because 13-0 at 2-10 is unacceptable. I know technically 13-1, but shut up. I don't count the Orange Bowl. I don't believe it happened. It's a myth. It's my moon landing. Number 1, Hugh Freeze. Really just, here's the thing that's sad about Auburn's roster, and Garrett, back me up here. Hugh Freeze has done a really good job of building it, except for one thing, which is the thing he's supposed to be the best at, right?
The quarterback, absolutely.
Yeah. Here's the thing. The reason I like this GIF here is it shows to me what Hugh Freeze thinks of himself all the time. Like, he thinks that he's killing it. But he threw his quarterbacks under the bus this year. He had a nice win over A&M with Peyton Thorne, but look, whether it's Jackson Arnold, whether it's getting Caden Salter back, whether it's anybody, the Ashton Daniels from Stanford, he's got to get a better quarterback. He's been able to get other pieces together, which look like a pretty good roster. I think most people would trade a lot of that with him. Probably better on defense when you've got weapons like Cam Coleman. They had great running game this year. Like, Jarquez Hunter's one of the best running backs in the country that nobody knows about anymore because Auburn was terrible in spite of how great he was. You got to get a quarterback. And Hugh, this is why they brought you in, to develop QBs. And you've been pretty conceited about your ability to do so to absolutely awful results. So he's got a lot of pressure, and really it's just about one position. If he can get a quarterback that can produce for them, he can get them back to a bowl game and competing for maybe a playoff spot. 9-3, 10-2 is not that big of a swing if you get the right QB. We'll see if he can do that, and we'll see if Hugh Freeze still has any juice left. I maybe don't believe it as much, and this is not a patient place in Auburn. That's going to do it for the top 5. Thanks to Texas Beef House as always. Have a great weekend, everybody.